I am viewing the stream here, so I guess I'm going to wait till I see us.
I talked to Marty. Marty said it was all that him and Jason had worked something out with somebody in the city. I don't know who.
This is what we're doing. This is our workout.
Oh, okay.
I have a text into them.
I just
too.
thought it was the Vulcan salute. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
they're giving us the live. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Welcome to the City of Pacifica regular meeting of City Council, April 27th, 2020. Call to order, please. And I will go ahead and read some special notes here we have for this evening because we have a different meeting format. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-25-20 and N-39-20, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act and pursuant to the orders of the Health Officer of San Mateo County dated March 16, 2020 and March 31st, 2020, as this meeting is necessary so that the city can conduct necessary business and is permitted under the orders as an essential governmental function. So this meeting is now physically open to the public for viewing in person. City council members and city staff, essential to this meeting will be video and teleconferencing into the meeting, and there will be no physical location open to the public. The public can observe the meeting via cable of live stream while sheltering at home. So how can you view remotely from home? You can watch it via our local TV channel 26 or online at www.cityofpacifica.org/live stream. That's www.cityofpacifica.org/live stream. For public comments, we will repeat this information later, but public comments may be submitted during the meeting by emailing comments to publiccomments@ci.pacifica.ca.us. Again, public comments may be submitted during the meeting by emailing comments to publiccomment@ci.pacifica.ca.us. For this city council meeting, public comments may be made only on items that are on the agenda. Please indicate in the email subject line the agenda item number or note oral communications, and in the email content, provide your full name, the meeting date, agenda number, or oral communication, and specify whether you would like your comments read into the record during the meeting. Comments should be limited to 350 words and comply with the 3-minute time limitation. The total duration of all public comments for each agenda item, including oral communications, will be limited to 30 minutes or subject to the mayor's discretion. Your entire electronic comment may not be read into the record due to time limitations imposed, and comments expressing similar positions may be summarized or abridged to provide for greater individual comments. But your written comments will become part of the record and will be available for public inspection. And just as a note, any alteration of this meeting format, the meeting format may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. You may check on the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at www.cityofpacifica.org for any updates. That's in case anything happens to our feed or any essential member of this discussion. So with that, I will ask for roll call. Clerk Coffey.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Beer. The record will reflect that Councilmember Beer is absent. Councilmember Batterlaus.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer.
Here.
And Mayor Martin.
Here. And we will have a salute to the flag led by Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
flag
Of the United States of America and
and
to
to
the republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are at the consent calendar. Is there any of the council that would like to pull any items from the consent calendar, and or do we have any public comment that has come in on any items on the consent calendar?
Mayor Martin, I see no public comments on any of the consent calendar items.
Okay, great. And for information to the rest of council members, I will look for a raised hand for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I second.
Great. We will have a roll call vote.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Here. Have to move rooms.
Yes, a yes or no vote, Councilmember O'Neill, on the consent calendar?
No, I'm sorry, I had to move rooms. I was on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a yes.
Councilmember Batterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
and the consent calendar passes with a vote of 4-0 with Councilmember Beer absent.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to oral communications. Do we have any public comment that has come in for oral communications? We may need to wait 2 minutes.
We do have oral communications, and I will read those into the record subject to the provisions that were stated at the beginning of the meeting and in the full agenda. This comment comes from Peter Key, Lindemar. The testing and tracing strategy is one of the most powerful tools for reducing coronavirus transmissions. See the example of South Korea. Can the Pacifica City Council press the county and state to provide community testing in or near Pacifica? 2, with the SIP, domestic violence is on the rise, as reported in the San Mateo Daily Journal. Victims are being cooped up with their abusers. What is Pacifica's City Council doing to address this issue before someone gets killed or hospitalized? 3, the COVID-19 crisis has shut down many businesses in Pacifica. This has surely affected Pacifica's budget. When can the City Council provide information about how bad the hit to the city's budget is? And what is the City Council doing to address this problem? What has the City Council requested from SMC and California in the way of assistance? And that's the end of the comment.
Is that the only comment?
No, I have more.
Okay.
This comment comes from Maria Fastidio. Hello, I would like the mayor to read my comments out loud. My name is Maria Fastidio and I own a townhome on Teranova with my family, which includes 2 young children and a dog. We moved in a little over 2 years ago, and what attracted us to this neighborhood is the sense of community. Every day you see families walking, people walking with their dogs, children walking to school, Little League, and the library. Allowing RVs in our neighborhood would rob our community of that. We do not know where these RV dwellers are from. Do you want to be responsible for any safety this imposes to any of the residents of this town or its children? Please think of the health and safety of our environment. Not that long ago, RV parked in the shopping center and emptied out their waste. I don't want to see that in our neighborhood, and we shouldn't have to. Do you really think these RV people care about what they do to the neighborhood? Parking around Terranova can be hard. I work as a night shift pediatric registered nurse who commutes from Oakland. The last thing I want to do is have to look for parking and then step over someone's waste products. I want to park in front of my house and go to sleep. I please ask you to stop allowing vehicles greater than 6 feet to park on Teranova. I fear the worst if this will happen. There are too many kids and families, safety issues that you are playing with if allowed to happen. Maria Fastidio. The next comment comes from David Whitney. The subject is parking in Pacifica. Greetings. Other popular cities have parking permits. Pacifica really is losing revenue now, and in future, if current practices continue, RVs continue clogging streets and visitors are told to leave. Santa Cruz has opened its beaches to all because it needs paid parking money. Pacifica seems unable to channel its newfound popularity into a win-win from lose-lose. Maybe council needs a refresh and should take a nice Capitola trip to see how it can be. And that comment's from David Whitney. The following comment is from Cleo Borak. Members of the Pacifica City Council, please read into the record my full name, Cleo M. Borak, resident at Grand Teton Drive, and my request for the Pacifica City Council to immediately repeal the Planning Commission's decision to approve use permit UP-96-818, allowing Modus LLC on behalf of Verizon Wireless to install a small cell wireless facility on a utility pole 250 feet in front of Teranova High School. I believe there is clear evidence that the planning department was misled during this entire application and during the televised meeting. 1, the height of this installation does not comply with the Pacifica Municipal Code Title 9, Chapter 4, Article 26, Section 9-4.2608, subsection E, paragraphs 1 and 3. Furthermore, the applicant did not provide proof of necessity defined as a gap in coverage, dead zone in the area of coverage, or capacity deficiency, dropped call logs. 2, the aesthetic impact to students and staff of Teranova High School, as well as visitors to the school, will be horrendous. Views from the front steps of Teranova High School and the baseball field bleachers have the antenna directly and obviously in the line of sight. Please see photos submitted by CC4RT. 3, there are published market analyses and survey data in real estate literature, also submitted here by the CC4RT, that clearly show, both recently and dating back over a decade, that a new cellular installation in a residential neighborhood will drop property prices anywhere from 2.5 to 21%. During these uncertain economic times, please do not allow this threat to the biggest investment that we as residents are counting on, our homes. To reiterate, I request an immediate repeal of the Pacifica Planning Commission's decision to approve use permit UP-96-18 and a denial of the application until the city has in place appropriate protective ordinances regarding small cell installations for its residents, students, and real estate concerns. Charging a $500 appeal fee to Pacifica residents is unacceptable given the situation. Regards, Cleo Borak. And the same comment letter was also submitted by 10 other individuals. I'll just read their names into the record. The same was submitted by Silvio Borak, Irene Monahan, Kristen Aurelio, Jill Aurelio, Jennifer Wong, Scott Hill, Crystal Meager, Rick May, Jewel Wally, and Zachary Heller. The following comment is from Richard Schaefer of Granite Electric, Inc. Dear Council, please read into the public record that I, Richard Schaefer, am in favor of the new 5G cell tower on Terranova Boulevard at Teranova High School. There is definitely a lack of coverage in the surrounding area, including on Teranova Boulevard, Everglades Drive, and many of the side streets off those thoroughfares. I believe it is a safety issue and quality of life issue to have reliable cell phone coverage. My daughter has been jogging in this area during the COVID-19 crisis. It is important that she be able to use her phone to call for help if there is an issue. Contrary to what some people may say, I don't think it erodes property values to have a cell tower. I think it's just the opposite. Not having cell phone coverage in the 21st century is a reason to not buy a house. Thank you, Richard Schaefer. The following comment comes from Tom Forrester with the subject line oral communications regarding small cell wireless installation near Teranova High School. Please explain why this is necessary. Otherwise, we are opposed to this installation. Thank you, Tom Forrester, Park Pacifica Avenue. From Gary Youngdale, the subject, what is this health danger from wireless antennas by the high school? ? And that's the end of the comment. From Kathleen Courtney, subject, cell tower, yes. Please install. We need better cell service in the back of the valley. Thank you. Kathleen Courtney, Park Pacifica. The following comments are from Linda Prasajny of the Teranova Homeowners Association Board of Directors. City Council's ban on RV parking on streets desperate for relief will send the vehicularly housed to the back of the valley bedroom communities. We urgently as City Council to not let that happen. Many RV dwellers were displaced by the fires and pushed out of Daly City and Half Moon Bay. They are not as claimed by some, mostly Pacificans. That doesn't mean they're not important, but Pacifica can't take on all the area's homeless population. Another sizable number of RVs parked on the streets belong to people who have homes here and are storing them on the street for free. If you categorize out of town folks putting down roots from freeloading homeowners, from Pacificans hard on their luck to find out exactly who are constituents in need of assistance, you would at least have a relevance factor and far fewer RVs. Now it's out of control and City Council wants to help all who have come. We simply don't have the resources. I ask City Council to push the county relentlessly. They have real estate and resources Pacifica lacks. The growing homeless problem needs solutions on that level. Our neighborhoods should not become homeless camps. This is not a solution that adequately serves the homeless, and it would drastically alter the valley. Neighbors wonder what the local churches are planning together with the resource center. Hopefully that will become clear tonight. Whatever stage the safe parking program is in, its success or failure or lack of progress should not be a factor in adding Terranova to the list of streets banning parking of vehicles over 6 feet. Nor should we be waiting for a bike lane. Thank you for your consideration to decide this as soon as possible before the ban is enacted. It is a safety and sanitation issue. From the Teranova Homeowners Association Board of Directors. Linda Prasajny also submitted a comment and with the remaining part of the time regarding subject antenna install application passed by April 20th Planning Commission, please read into the record. And because there's only a little bit of time left, she says, I asked City Council to reverse the decision of the Planning Department on 20th of April to allow installation of a canister antenna at Teranova High School on the utility pole at the front entrance. I believe the applicant gave the planning commissioners wrong answers to their very clear questions as to whether the antenna was 5G, which is significant due to the eventual proliferation of these antennae that will be needed throughout Pacifica if 5G is to become functional. There would have to be small cell, and that's the end of the time. This comment comes from Eleanor Natwick, subject Teranova Rv Parking. Once again, I ask that you do not allow RVs larger than 6 feet to be parked on Teranova Boulevard. This is a very densely populated area with many townhomes, 2 schools, a library, a daycare center, 2 senior living complexes, 2 churches, and a lot of vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic during normal times. Large RVs obstruct sight lines for drivers and others coming in and out of driveways and at corners. They create a hazard to safety. We have already had a very large ragtag motorhome in our area for months, relocating every few days from near the library on Terranova to Odstead to the Park Mall lot and rotating back again. We definitely do not want more of them to congregate in this residential neighborhood. I have been told by a council member that Terranova is slated to have a bike lane painted on the street and not to be concerned. However, I don't know when that might happen, or even if that would preclude the parking of large motorhomes on the street. The entire length of Terranova Boulevard needs to be designated as non-RV parking area. And that comment is from Eleanor Natwick from Terranova Boulevard. I have a comment from Kathy Bede. Subject is RV parking on Terranova Boulevard. Dear City Council members, I am a homeowner of 19 years on Terranova Boulevard. I strongly oppose the city's plan to allow RV parking on Terranova Boulevard. This is a residential area of families with children, adults, seniors, schools, playgrounds, and ball fields. Parking is already very limited, especially now when everyone is home due to COVID-19. Allowing non-resident oversized RVs to occupy valuable parking spaces in our neighborhood is not fair to the people who live and now work here. This is our home. We live here. We pay our property taxes here. We want our neighborhood to be safe and clean. We have invested in our homes. We do not want our property values to decrease and our neighborhood to become undesirable because RVs are parked all along our street. I urge you to reconsider your plan to allow RV parking on Terranova Boulevard. Do not degrade our neighborhood and safety of our children and seniors. Do not permit RV parking on Terranova Boulevard. Sincerely, Catherine Bede, Terranova Boulevard. The following comment comes from Michelle Como. Subject, parking on Terranova Boulevard. To the City Council of Pacifica, I am very concerned about the possibility of vehicles over 6 feet being able to park on Terranova Boulevard. I live in a townhouse on Terranova, and it is already quite difficult to exit our complexes, driveways onto Terranova in a safe manner. Having our view blocked by large vehicles is a quite frightening proposal. I encourage you to read this email into the record. Thank you, Michelle Como, homeowner, Terranova Boulevard. The following comment is quite lengthy, so may not, the full comment may not be read into the record, but for any comments that are not fully read into the record, those are going to be provided in written format to the council and will be available for public review as well. And this comment comes along with several attachments as well, which will be provided after the City Council meeting. Members of the Pacifica City Council, if there is only one communication regarding this matter that you can read into the record, please try to read this in its entirety. I will try to respect the city's time and keep this as concise as possible. However, this is an urgent and very complex issue. All the provided links below, as well as more information for further clarification, is available at change.org/Pacifica5G. My name is Dr. Sunil Bhatt, DO. I am a Pacifica homeowner and a founding member of the Cal Coast for Responsible Tech. Change.org/Pacifica5G and Facebook.com/CC4RT, which was formed less than 1 week ago in response to use permit application UP-96-18 regarding the installation of a small cell wireless facility at 1450 Terranova Boulevard in front of Terranova High School. We are requesting an immediate reversal of the Planning Commission's decision to conditionally approve it on 4/20/20 and a subsequent denial of the application. We are submitting oral communications today because, as you know, the deadline for our appeal is 4/30 and comes with a $500 appeal fee. I understand that both the Planning Commission and the City Council are under the impression that they cannot appeal or deny this application. And most, if not all of you, want to make the right decision, yet feel your hands are tied by federal law. This is decidedly false, and we, as your constituents, want to help you do the right thing for our community. We want to stand with you against the telecom industry. The relevant clauses of the 1996 Federal Telecommunications Act clearly state, Section 704, Facilities Citing, Radio Frequency Emission Standards, A, National Wireless Telecommunications Citing Policy, Section 332C, 47 USC 332C is amended by adding at the end the following new paragraph. 7. Preservation of local zoning authority. A. General authority. Except as provided in this paragraph, nothing in this act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities. B. 4. No state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. We are not appealing on, and that's the end of the 3-minute time. The remainder of these comments will be submitted in written format to the council. The following comment comes from Suzanne Moore. April 20th, 2020. We write on behalf of the co-applicant board of the San Mateo County Healthcare for the Homeless Farm Worker Health Program, HCH/FW program. This board is comprised of local community leaders, and it oversees a program funded by the federal government and managed by San Mateo County to support the health of the county's homeless and farm worker communities. For the reasons stated below, the HCH/FH program board supports a moratorium on encampment clearings during the term of the county health officer's countywide shelter-in-place order. Furthermore, the HCH/FH program board supports access to safe parking for vehicularly housed individuals and or a moratorium on towing of RVs and other motor vehicles, providing housing for individuals in San Mateo County during this period. Individuals experiencing homelessness are at particular risk of contracting COVID-19 due to their lack of access to stable housing and adequate hygiene resources. These individuals are already 5 times more likely than members of the general public to be hospitalized and are more vulnerable to hospitalization due to COVID-19, according to the nonprofit organization Homebase. Encampment sweeps further compromise encampment residents' health and exacerbate the spread of COVID-19 as a result of loss of essential resources, including medications, hygiene equipment, food supplies, and shelter, for example, tents. Loss of connection to trusted outreach workers and reliable information sharing networks, and displacement of encampment residents to other locations in the community, thereby increasing the risk of contracting or spreading COVID-19. As a result, the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, recommends that communities cease encampment sweeps to reduce negative health impacts on encampment residents and the general community. The CDC also advises governments to instruct people staying in encampments to set up sleeping areas with at least 12 feet of space between individuals and to provide hygienic services such as portable latrines and hand washing stations. Homeless persons living in their vehicles also face an increased risk of trauma, health issues, and displacement similar to other unsheltered homeless persons. Continuous moving of locations makes accessing health services and other support services difficult. To that end, the San Mateo County HCH/FH Program Board seeks the requested measures in order to avoid displacement and to prevent the spreading of COVID-19. We support a holistic approach to address the issues of homelessness, such as providing outdoor encampments with hand washing and other sanitation facilities. And that was submitted by Suzanne Moore. The following comment was submitted by Anita Reese from the Pacifica Resource Center. Pacifica Resource Center remains open during the statewide shelter-in-place order. Our open office hours are Monday and Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Wednesday, 1:30 to 7 p.m., Thursday, 1:30 to 5 p.m., and Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are available other hours by phone. Whenever possible, we are meeting with folks by phone, and when they have to come to the office, we are practicing social distancing and providing folks with masks and hand sanitizer. PRC continues delivering groceries to 250 families throughout Pacifica weekly. In addition to PRC staff, we have volunteer drivers who have started deliveries this week. If you or someone you know needs help with groceries, please contact PRC at 650-738-7470 or via our website at pacresourcecenter.org. PRC has funding to help cover the cost of rent, mortgage, or other critical needs due to COVID-19. Funds for financial assistance are primarily from SMC Strong and SF Chronicles Season of Sharing Fund. We have a web-based pre-application to make the process easier. If you or someone you know needs help paying your rent, mortgage, or other costs, contact PRC at 650-738-7470 or via our website at pacresourcecenter.org, and we will send you the link. PRC is the primary way for unhoused families and individuals in Pacifica to access shelter options. If you or someone you know are unhoused and need a place to stay, especially during the shelter-in-place order, contact PRC at 650-738-7470 or via our website at pacresourcecenter.org. And the deadline to complete the census has been extended. You can complete the census online at my2020census.gov or by phone at 844-330-2020. Even though San Mateo County has the highest response rate in California and Pacifica has the 5th highest response rate in San Mateo County, we need everyone counted because vital funding for healthcare and emergency service funding, like the response for COVID-19, comes from being counted in the census. #EveryoneCounts. And that comment is from Anita Reese, the Executive Director from Pacifica Resource Center. With that, I will turn it over to Deputy City Clerk Elizabeth Brooks for any additional public comments that have been received for oral communications.
Can we just repeat at this point that people can email into public comments at ci.pacifica.ca.us if they have a comment? Thank you.
Before reading the communications that were received after 5 p.m., I wanted to state that Lindsay Cratton and Molly Bullock reiterated the email read by City Clerk Sarah Coffey from Cleo Borak. And I won't read those emails again, but I wanted to state for the record that they wrote in as well. First comment I have.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, can you
Yes.
please state the topic of those, of the email that they were commenting on or that it's similar to?
Yes. This was an oral communication regarding small cell wireless installation near Teranova High School. The first comment after 5 p.m. was Krista Carlson. Subject line, over 6 feet tall parking van needed in Teranova Boulevard. I have owned my townhome on Teranova Boulevard since 2002. It is difficult to see coming out of the driveways, and without a ban on vehicles over 6 feet, it will be even more challenging to see traffic as I leave my driveway, making it a hazard for me and the traffic heading up and down Teranova Boulevard. Additionally, as I live in driveway 17, which faces the Ortega parking lot, with the oncoming traffic from the school traffic on weekday mornings and afternoons and the weekend and evening traffic from soccer and Little League games, there is more danger entering and exiting my driveway. Parking is also an issue during the fall and spring due to the sport games. And vehicles over 6 feet will take up more parking spaces, which are hard to find. Please extend the ban to Terranova Boulevard for both visual and parking concerns. This comment is from Krista Carlson, Terranova Boulevard. Next, we have a comment from Ann Nord. Over 6 feet parking ban extended to Terranova Boulevard. Pacifica City Council and City Manager, please extend the over 6 feet parking ban to include all of Terranova Boulevard. We have 2 schools and a number of assisted living complexes on Terranova, and crime, safety, and hygiene are of concern when allowing RVs to set up home on a street that includes no facilities for them, water, electricity, and sanitation, unless you can guarantee that the citizens living on Terranova will not have to suffer a lowering of their quality of life because of allowing RVs to set up a home on Terranova. For the RV folk, it is also unfair to have them live somewhere where they are likely not wanted, but also has no infrastructure for them to maintain the basic needs of clean water, sanitation, and electricity. Please consider extending the ban on vehicles over 6 feet to include all of Terranova. From Concerned Citizen, Ann Nord. Our next comment is from Chris Redfield, the subject, oral communications. I want to thank the Herculean efforts staff has been tasked with in the current environment. With the extension of SIP until at least the end of May, I again thank you, as city staffs are stretched to capacity. I strongly urge CC and staff to move forward with the oversized vehicle ordinance signage and implementation process. We know the proposed cost of signage was estimated at $40K citywide. This is a clear and strong investment in what the overwhelming voting public wants and sends a message of support to Pacificans. I strongly urge CC to move forward to direct staff to send out RFPs for progress on signage and installation, to not only begin to manage this issue for all Pacificans, but to begin the long process of education and direction to services necessary. This is, relatively speaking, a low-cost expenditure in the overall budgetary plan. We will all find out soon just how bad that picture looks. I think Mr. Woodhouse's 410, April 10th document in regards to the city's financial plight. We are all in this together. Our next comment is from Carolyn Jaramillo. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Carolyn Jaramillo. I have been a Pacifica homeowner for 30 plus years. Thanks to the council, staff, and the Resource Center, and all essential workers here in Pacifica for keeping us safe during the pandemic. For several years, council members have adopted a compassionate community as one of the major goals of the city. It is with this goal in mind that I have several questions. Has there been a concerted effort during the pandemic to gain access to county and state funds to protect and house the homeless here in Pacifica? Are any efforts being made to see how many vacant hotel rooms could be made available to house the homeless during the pandemic? Is there any effort being made to once again contact the owner of the RV park to see if some lots could be made available to people living on the streets in their vehicles? There are now many vacant lots in that park. My last question, is there assurance that the permitted parking program proposed by the PRC will ever go into effect? I recall that Councilmember Beer agreed to support the oversized vehicle ordinance if there was a good faith agreement that a permitted parking program would also be approved. The oversized vehicle ordinance is now on the books. We need to care for all residents, no exceptions. All of us are in this together. Thank you for your consideration. Our next comment comes from Noah regarding 5G deployment at Teranova. Why aren't you all protecting the youth of this city? After all, that is what it's all about. 5G is a small cell site using millimeter waves. Radiation levels far exceed safe exposure level, even inside a building. MM waves vibrate cells within the living body. However you dress this up, long-term exposure cannot be healthy. Long-term exposure equates to harm. Harming a human is a crime. Any questions? If you were not aware what EMFs are, electromagnetic frequencies, and the effect on human blood cells, please review this quick video explaining quickly in 2 minutes. https://youtube.com/4GAYOFK5QJS. Belfast is where the top 1% in the world are going to study. Take a listen. https://youtube.com/DBPJK-WYBE4. Again, please study 5G. buildingbiology-institute.org/free-fact-sheets/g-understanding-the-protection-strategies/. Next comment is a reiteration of the email City Clerk Sarah Coffey read earlier from Dr. Sunil Bhatt. I will not repeat it. It is from the same addressee also, Cal Coast for Responsible Tech, Dr. Sunil Bhatt, DO. I'm reviewing some that just came in to see if they're for oral comment or for an agenda item. We received a comment from Terra for oral communications. I would like this read into the record. My name is Tiara Tanner. I am a resident of Park Pacifica and I have a 6-week-old son. I want to request that City Council reverse Planning Commission's decision to approve the small cell installation at Teranova High School. The antenna will only provide improved service for the 1,000-foot area around the pole per the applicant, which is not sufficient to remedy the poor reception. There are better options like simple cellular repeaters, which will improve cellular reception and not be as significant a threat to our health or property values. Received, that's the end of that comment. We received a comment from Blanca Gutierrez with the subject line, please save our city. Please do not install 5G. Don't let big corporations come in and ruin Pacifica. Please save our lives. Equals 5G will kill us. Please study 5G. Blanca Gutierrez, Director, Institutional Trading. That concludes the oral comments we've received.
Okay, Clerk Coffey, should we wait another minute to see if anything comes in?
It looks like we're mostly caught up. I think that we can probably proceed since folks had time during the comment period to submit comments
Okay.
as well.
Great, thank you. With that, I will close oral communications with that, and I will move on to council communications. Do I have any hand raises here? They are not computing if you are raising your hand. You can give me a visual cue as well. But you're all on mute. Mike, go ahead, you're up.
I've been doing all the different county committees via Zoom. Attended the commute.org meeting, and today was congestion management. There's a lot of concern in the county about the effects of COVID and people resuming riding public transportation. And will people use it? And there's going to possibly be a campaign to have employers allow people to work from home maybe 1 day a week or whatever. So other than that, there's not been a lot of community activities to go to. So pretty much just the committee meetings. So that's my report.
Great, thanks. I do see Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer's hand up. You're good to go, Sue. But you're on mute. There you go. There you go. We can hear you now.
Okay. On Tuesday, April 24th, the Economic Development Committee met via Zoom, and Councilmember O'Neill and I are the liaisons for that committee. All members were able to attend, which was great. And the agenda of the meeting focused on assistance to small businesses during this immediate time of shutdown because of COVID-19. We had a presentation from Roseanne Faust, the Executive Director of SAMCETA, the San Mateo County Economic Development Association. And a couple of subcommittees were formed to work on messaging and work on various outreach strategies. One of the subcommittees, I'm sure they've all been meeting, or they've both been meeting, but I know one for sure has been meeting, met and produced a messaging piece with relevant links to resources that, with the assistance of Economic Development Manager Thomas Myers and Assistant City Manager Lorenzo Hines, they were able to get that out to over 900 people, which is great. One of the items that was included in our presentation from Roseanne Faust was the San Mateo County Strong Fund for businesses and the procedures around which one would apply, who would be eligible. And the online application period opened this afternoon at noon. It crashed almost right away, and then it was repaired almost right away. And I know of one business person in Pacifica that for sure was able to get their application in. And I know a couple others that were working on it. So I also want to report that I've heard from 2 small business people in Pacifica who received paycheck protection loans through the SBA, and I believe an EIDL loan through the SBA. So those activities continue, and I think I just saw a link, and I haven't had a chance to check it out, that Pacific Coast Television has also put together some resources for small business people. And that's my report.
Great, thank you, Sue. And we also have Sue Waterloss.
Again, I've attended more Zoom meetings than I can even imagine. We did have the County Office of Emergency Services meeting. And of course, that was interesting, talking about all the developments. On Friday, of course, they indicated at our county meeting, we do those Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that they are going to extend the time period to the end of the month, and change some of the regulations regarding the shelter in place, but we won't know that till the end of the week. I attended the governor's meeting on testing, and a lot of it was directed towards county health people, so a lot of it I didn't understand. The GMM and the AMC, I don't know, they speak in acronyms. And but one of the things I heard on there which startled me was that they said that there may be a testing method that they can do through wastewater. And the biggest concern for me with that is that we still have some leaking pipes which go directly out into the ocean. And I'm concerned about the number of surfers surfing. If they can actually test from wastewater, is it transmitted through wastewater? And that was a big concern to me. And I just wanted people to know that. And I'm thankful for the masks, that they did ask for people to wear masks, and the walking with a mask, I think, is really important. I understand. I asked about why they didn't require it for bicycles, and they said it's just too hard to breathe when you're running or on a bicycle. But please, if you're walking, I walk, and I'd appreciate if everybody could wear a mask when they're outside. And that's it. Oh, census. The census is mentioned once already. The county's at 67%. That's not good enough. Or the city is at 67%. And that is not good enough. We need to be at 95. We need to be at 100. And I know that's impossible, but I'd like to see it a lot higher than it currently is. So if everybody could go online and please fill out the census. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sue. So for the record, Councilmember Beers on medical leave currently and is unable to attend tonight's city council meeting. Please let the record show that her absence is an excused absence. I want to give a quick shout out to Recology. They have done an amazing job just continuing service, our regular pickups in front of our homes. There are a lot of counties throughout the United States that have put a lot of restrictions and a lot of delays on their garbage and recycling pickup. And I am very thankful for Recology. So I just wanted to say that. I want to give another shout out. This past week was Earth Day, and the Pacific Beach Coalition put together an Earth Month challenge. They worked really hard in many different mediums to get people to take action all throughout the month. Clean your streets, they clean the beaches, shut your lights off, anything that you can to help reduce climate change. There were weed warriors and still are out at the Rockaway switchbacks, the Rockaway headlands, the trails at Lindemar, just grabbing all the weeds they can because we have normally had a really huge habitat restoration day. So many cleanups all throughout the city of Pacifica, and just encourage more of that very safely with gloves to continue to clean your neighborhoods, not just at Earth Month, but every month. The Pacific Beach Coalition every year dedicates all of their efforts to an endangered or threatened species. And this year is the albatross. You may know a little bit about the albatross, but if you don't, you will continue to learn a lot more about the albatross because the Beach Coalition will be extending their celebration and dedication of the albatross into next year. So continue to pick up litter safely, continue to help slow and reduce the effects of climate change. I attended our board meeting for the Peninsula Clean Energy last week, where we approved our strategic plan, and we worked really hard on that. So if you're interested to learn more, you can visit their website. And then I wanted to give an update on our shelter in place. As you've heard this evening, it has been extended through the end of through May. It has been extended through May. That is the verbiage. And we are now required to wear masks by the health order, whenever we are out in public. It is recommended that you use it when you are running, biking, hiking, doing all those recreational activities, but it is not required. Children ages 2 and under should not wear a mask, but children's ages 12 and under are also not required. It is recommended to wear a mask. I wanted to let everyone know that as of today, there were a little over 1,000 cases in San Mateo County, 1,080 as of today. The revised shelter in place order, over the course of this week, we will find a little bit more out about some of the low risk activities that will be sort of loosened for us. The statement was that next week we could see county parks open, but it will be gradually. There will be some guidance as to how that will happen, but stay tuned for that really exciting information, because that's really what we want to do, is just continue to recreate. This Friday coming up, we should see cases per zip code. So you will be able to visit the county's website. They're working on that. But the guidance is that this virus is everywhere. So continue to do what we're doing. The statement is always followed up with, well, we're going to do it by zip code, but that data is really not 100% correct. So we can't go by it. We just have to continue to stay the course and be safe. I also wanted to note, thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer for letting us know that the Pacifica Skilled Nursing Facility that had the outbreak up in the Manor District has been recognized by the Board of Supervisors as a center of excellence. So what does that mean? It means that any other areas where they're having breakouts in these nursing facilities, they're looking to our skilled nursing facility for guidance on how to remediate what's going on there. So that's amazing. You know, we made the news for the wrong reasons, but it ended up really that we're helping out the rest of the country. So yay, Pacifica Skilled Nursing Facility. Also, tomorrow, the Board of Supervisors is going to hear a proposed residential moratorium on rent increases. So stay tuned for more about that. And the details will also be published if that is in fact passed. That's it for COVID-19. I wanted to thank all of our essential workers, our paramedics, our police, our fire, our grocery workers, our nurses, our doctors, our childcare, everyone who really is rolling up their sleeves, and everyone who just continues to be like us, working hard, and our city staff to make things like this happen. I just want to advise everyone to continue to stay the course. It is working. Shelter in place. Be patient with one another. Be patient with all the things we've got going on. Yes, we've got parking issues. Yes, we've got recreation issues. Yes, we've got 6 feet issues. But we're all doing the things that we think are the right things to keep us all safe. And my last comment is that I believe this evening is our Economic Development Manager, Thomas Myers' last City Council meeting with us. He will be moving on to beloved retirement, and we will miss you. So thank you for everything you've done. You've really changed the way I view economic development, and I want to thank you for that. With that, I think I have a hand from Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer. You're up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say, in light of the comments you made about the skilled nursing facility in Pacifica, I really want to commend you, Mayor Martin, for jumping on that really early and really representing Pacifica in a very good way, and furthering the interests of support for that facility at the county level, and responding to media. And I just really think you have a lot to do with getting us on the radar. And it was very, in the recent days, in the last week, easily, as we've seen so many additional issues with skilled nursing facilities and care homes and board and care homes, and everyone's growing awareness of this issue. You were really the sign at the very beginning of all that. And what you were saying was exactly what everybody's saying now. So I really commend you on taking the lead on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Vargas.
I would also thank everybody. I mean, everyone's working so hard. We get tons and tons of letters and emails, and we really appreciate everyone because everyone who lives here cares, and they do care, and that's why they send us letters. Make sure you watch Mayor Martin's YouTube videos because it's fun, and she's informing us at the same time that she's having a good time. And I really enjoyed watching it, and I thank you for that too, because we need a little bit of levity during this crisis. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to give a quick shout out to Bevan Bell and Cherie Chan, who actually made that recommendation and offered their services up. These folks were just, we have these questions. Why can't we get them answered? It was easy. And he had the equipment and skills to do that. Bevan Bell, he's a local filmmaker, producer, director, and he made it fun and easy. And that was just great. So we were lucky that he stepped forward to offer his assistance. This is volunteerism at its best because they love Pacifica. So thank you to those folks, and I'm glad you enjoyed them. All right, anyone else? I think we will move on to staff communications.
Thank you, Mayor Martin and Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer and council members. Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I have some comments, updates regarding COVID-19, and the mayor, as well as others, covered a lot of the countywide data, so I won't repeat that information. And instead, what I'd like to provide updates on is the enforcement and education activity that the police department has been doing related to beach visitation. And before I begin with that, I just want to really thank the police department as well as the public works department, because an immense amount of work has gone into all of the parking restrictions as well as the educational engagements that the police officers have done at Pacifica State Beach as well as in the Maury Point Sharp Park area. So a shout out to all the extra work that's being done there. So this weekend with nice weather was a really busy weekend. The police officers engaged in conversation over 1,200 visitors to the beaches and Maury Point. And in that casual engagement, more than 700 were from outside of the 5-mile radius from Pacifica. So they were asked to leave voluntarily and they all complied. So great result on the educational approach, informing people about the health orders, that they should be recreating within 5 miles of their residence. And that right now, while we normally love to have visitors to Pacifica and we want visitors to Pacifica, right now is not a good time to be coming to Pacifica if you're outside of that 5-mile radius in order to protect everyone's health. So we're going to continue that effort. Related to the beaches, yesterday we learned from state parks, and this is statewide, but received the communication from the superintendent of our district of state parks, that they have put in a new order, new regulations related to state beaches that prohibit beach accessories. And what they mean by that are things like umbrellas, shade structures, tents of any shapes or sizes, barbecues and grills, coolers, beach chairs. The intention here is that if you're going to be using the open space at the beach, it's for essential activity of exercise and to be enjoying that outdoor space for that activity. And all of these accessories are related to people plopping down at the beach and just being there, and there being, challenges with physical distancing. And so with this new regulation, which went into effect today, and they'll be coming out with their press releases and more details later this week, Pacifica is going to also consider the same restrictions on those types of beach accessories for not just the state beach, Pacifica State Beach, but the other beaches in town. So we'll be looking more into that. More information will come out later in the week. As was mentioned, importantly, later this week, new health orders are going to come out from the county health officers from around the entire Bay Area. That could be as early as Wednesday this week or after that this week. We'll be paying close attention to what those health orders say. And so that completes my COVID-19 comments. I also did want to give a shout out and thank you for doing that to Economic Development Manager Thomas Myers. In my career, this is going to be the very first time that our retirement celebration is going to be done via Zoom for an employee. So I couldn't pick a nicer employee to be casual and accepting of that kind of a send off. He's very understanding and so, but he has a lot of plans for his next phase in life, and we've really enjoyed having him as the Economic Development Manager for the time that he has been in Pacifica. In the interim, Assistant City Manager Lorenzo Hines is going to be filling in and staffing the Economic Development Committee and working on economic development activities, as are numerous other employees as necessary to keep our economic development activities going in this really important time. And that completes my comments.
Thank you, City Manager. All right, so we have no public hearings this evening. We have some items of consideration. We have item number 5, to consider a resolution to increase to Rockaway Beach in lieu parking facilities fee in the Rockaway Beach specific plan area. We will have a presentation from Sam Bautista. Sam?
Good evening, Mayor.
We can hear you.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. Sam Bautista, your Deputy Director of Public Works for Engineering and Field Services. Tonight, I'd like to introduce James Edison, the Managing Principal at Wildan Financial Services, who will be answering any questions you have regarding parking lieu fees. So the item before you is the Rockaway Beach specific plan parking and lieu fee update. Next slide. So tonight we'll be discussing what is a parking and lieu fee, what the current Rockaway Beach specific plan parking and lieu fee is about. I did some analysis for the new fee recommendation, and then we'll also discuss next steps. Next slide, please. So what is a parking and lieu fee? Parking and lieu fees are generally used in larger cities and suburbs, especially in areas where there's sudden development growth and multiple establishments that are renovating their property. These fees are in lieu of having or meeting individual off-street parking requirements. Developers can choose to pay the in lieu fee or provide the required parking spaces for the development. And these fees happen to go into a designated parking fund. Next slide, please. So the current parking in lieu fee was created back in 1986. So in February 1986, the City of Pacifica Redevelopment Agency adopted a plan for the Rockaway Beach redevelopment project area. The specific plan called for the agency to provide off-street and on-street parking to include the eventual construction of a centralized parking structure. So in December 1986, the agency adopted a resolution establishing a $3,000 per in lieu parking space, and this figure could be increased or decreased by the agency. The city has incorporated this in lieu fee in the city's municipal code, and we continue to collect the parking in lieu fee, and as such, it's the account has grown. Next slide, please. So the specific plan envisions the construction of the Rockaway Beach parking structure on Old County Road on a city-owned lot. The parking structure would provide 3 levels of parking, which total 120 spaces. The parking in lieu fee would be used for the design and construction of the proposed parking structure, and staff contracted with Watry Design, who's a well-known parking structure designer, to analyze the existing lot and prepare a parking structure feasibility study. They studied our specific plan, and they found that it was feasible to build a parking structure on the existing lot. It would be an above-grade parking structure, 4 levels of parking, providing 117 parking spaces. The total cost of the project would be about $10.1 million, which equates to about $87,000 a space. Next, please. So the current fund balance in the parking lieu fee account has $130,000, but the cost to design the proposed parking structure is about $870,000. There are no other funding sources identified to support the project, and the current parking in lieu fee is too low and is received sporadically. Thus, it will take years for the city to start this project. This fee applies to all developments and redevelopments. So in either case, the developer cannot provide, if the developer cannot provide the required amount of on-site parking, the developer will be charged the parking in lieu fee for the number of spaces not provided on site. Next. So staff recommends increasing the Rockaway Beach parking in lieu fee appropriately. Staff identified the rough cost of construction per parking space for municipal parking structures in the Bay Area by speaking with contractors and consultants. And the average cost of above grade parking structures in the Bay Area is per space is in the range of $38,000 to $53,000, an average of $45,500 per parking space. The table on the right shows is a comparison of cities with parking in lieu fees. As you can see, Emeryville has a parking in lieu fee of $8,315, while Palo Alto has a parking in lieu fee of $70,094. Just recently, San Mateo just increased their parking in lieu fee from around $25,000 to $50,000. So the average of the parking in lieu fees on this table is approximately $40,260. Next slide, please. So the city contracted with Wildan Financial Services to assist with the parking in lieu fees update study. The updated parking in lieu fee was calculated at $88,529, which is a reasonable amount given the cost to construct the parking structure in the proposed, current location, which is that the lot on Old County Road. The high fee could become a deterrent to new development or redevelopment and slow the growth in the area. A lower parking in lieu fee would provide flexibility, especially for small lot developments, and stimulate real estate development. Although a developer should be providing parking for their project, the parking in lieu fee offers developers an important tool to maximizing parking flexibility. Next, please. So staff recommends that the new parking in lieu fee be set at $40,260 per space, which is the average of the parking in lieu fees based on the data shown in the previous slide. And it's the approximate cost of constructing a parking space in an above grade parking structure. Staff also recommends adopting the attached resolution to increase the fee and include it in next year's master fee schedule. We also recommend that the new parking lieu fee includes a construction cost escalation factor similar to those to other fees that we have, and tie it into the construction cost index and adjust it automatically on an annual basis. And we also recommend that any projects submitted to the planning department prior to the adoption of this resolution will not be subjected to the increased fee. Next slide, please. So our next steps is that the city would like to implement a parking in lieu fee in other areas of the city. And we've identified areas such as Manor, Sharp Park, Painter Point, Lindemar, and Fairmont neighborhoods as districts which could benefit from the construction of parking facilities. Staff has begun work on a parking in lieu fee analysis for the Sharp Park area, and additional review for the Sharp Park parking in lieu fee is necessary and will be presented uh, to City Council along with a resolution for adoption at the May 11, 2020 City Council meeting. So next slide. So with that, that's my short presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions. And James Edison is also here to answer any questions.
And Madam Mayor, this is Michelle Kenyon, the city attorney, and I one little addition to the resolution that is attached to the staff report. And it would be found in the resolution in the first resolve clause. The last sentence in that resolve clause was inadvertently deleted, and it should read, this increased fee of $40,260 shall not apply to any project submitted to the planning department prior to the date of adoption of this resolution. So I would just ask that that language be added to the first resolve clause in the resolution.
Anyone have any questions? I don't see any hands raised.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Good boy. Hi. Okay, question is, by submitted, does that mean they do their initial application, or is that after plan review and comments go back and forth and it's final?
It would relate to the date that the application is filed.
Filed, so when it's submitted at the counter.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Will this also apply to residential? Like if a guy wants to build an apartment building or something?
If, yes, Councilmember O'Neill, if the developer cannot provide the on-site parking, then they would pay the fee. If the development happens to be in Rockaway Beach.
Right. But if it's residential or mixed use, the fee would still be paid, right?
That's correct.
Residential as well as commercial or mixed use.
Yes, it's all for all developments.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to double check that.
Okay, are there any additional questions? I don't see any. Oh, Councilmember Waterloss. There you are.
Hi. The hotel, the Lighthouse Hotel has a parking garage, and upstairs they have a downstairs and an upstairs parking garage. Their upstairs parking garage is almost always empty. Have we looked at, instead of building an entire parking garage, maybe leasing their parking garage? It was just an idea, and I just thought of it today, so otherwise.
This fee is actually to construct public parking. So doing a private public partnership, I would have to probably defer that to our financial consultant. If you know what kind of mechanisms there are to do such a thing. So James, are you available?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I would say one key consideration here is really because because it's an in lieu fee and you're giving an exemption to a parking requirement on site, you would need to make sure that you're providing a permanent parking solution. So that in terms of this exchange, now the separate matter of whether there's sufficient parking and leasing it, I mean, that certainly is all things within the council's purview. But I would suggest that for the purposes of this plan, you would need to have a parking strategy that really replaces on a permanent basis the parking that you're waiving, waiving on-site requirements. So a lease would have to be, very long term, I would say, because you need to have some certainty that it wouldn't just be available in the next 5 years. It will be available for the length of the use of the development that's getting waived. I think that's a consideration I would think about.
Thank you.
Actually, oh,
Go ahead, Mike.
yeah. Sue, that's actually a good idea, because I think most of the problem with parking in Rockaway Beach is the fact that you go there at 9 o'clock, the employees of the various businesses have pretty much filled up the parking lot. Now, if we were to try to see if there was some way we could get them to use that empty parking space, there would be more spaces available for the customers of the merchants, and I don't know if that's a whole separate discussion and not having to do with this resolution, because that's just directing people, kind of like employees are supposed to park in the back lot at Lindemar, and they don't.
Right. The difference between the current parking situation and the planned future parking that you're providing in lieu of on-site parking.
Right. So
Yeah.
I understand that. So I don't know. I know we need public comment, but is there any?
Well, Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I just want to double check my math, which I'm quickly doing on my cell phone, in regard to the potential parking lot, 3 or 4 stories, 117 or 120 spaces, that at a cost of $10 million and something dollars. If I understood the proposal, it is to establish or basically raise our in lieu parking fee, which presently is $3,000, if I'm not mistaken, across town, to specifically $40,260 for something in the Rockaway area, on the west side of Highway 1. If I did my math, and I'm pretty willing for you to tell me, no, that's wrong, we would be looking at 252 payments of that in lieu fee at that rate to be able to build the lot that I think I saw in Director Batista's presentation. Is that correct?
I will check your math, but that does sound correct.
Yeah, rough numbers, that sounds right.
Yes.
Okay. I know this is kind of probably more of a planning question, and I wish I would have thought of it kind of like Councilmember Vaterlas. In regard to, for example, the hotel that's just added space, or, how many additional spaces do we foresee receiving in lieu payments for in that area of Rockaway? I mean, I'm looking at how many parcels there are, how much land there is, to build, and then to either provide on-site parking or to pay in lieu.
I'll have to defer that to Director Wehrmeister if she knows what the projections are for the area.
Yeah, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer, Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager, while Director Wehrmeister may be getting up there, I think the reality is with parking in lieu fees is that it's a mechanism to start building a fund over many, many years. And for immediate, huge, expensive projects, that's not going to be a realistic solution to fund that. So you would need other funding mechanisms to add. But if you advance 10 years now or 20 years, and that fund has been building up, and the project finally comes to fruition, then you've been saving all along. I don't know that we have a projection for what kind of redevelopment might occur in Rockaway. If one of the hotels expands or whatnot, or even smaller mixed use or residential redevelopment occurs. It's just a kind of pay as you go system, and the fee, as you saw in the report, was grossly underestimated, and therefore not building up to very robust of a fund now. But maybe 5 or 10 years from now, we will have a substantial fund, and maybe there'll be some other funding sources that can go towards parking solutions in Rockaway.
And if I could just add to Councilmember Vice Mayor Beckmeyer's question, it's important to remember that it would be very difficult to come up with that answer to that question because it's an in lieu fee. So it's totally within the prerogative of the developer to either provide the parking or pay the in lieu fee. And there's no way for us to accurately quantify how many are going to want to provide the parking or provide an in lieu fee. So it's very difficult to answer that question.
Thank you.
Question? Okay, this is an in lieu fee for Rockaway Beach, so therefore I imagine it's restricted to Rockaway Beach, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the original people that passed this was the redevelopment agency back in what, the 1960s or 70s, whatever. At that point, the quarry was also part of the redevelopment agency. So does this mean this could be used if something ever goes into the quarry to build a parking structure there?
That's correct, because the original description of the Rockaway Beach specific plan includes the Rockaway or the quarry area. So the specific plan does have the boundaries listed, and the quarry is listed as part of Rockaway Beach.
Okay, so at some point, the funds that we collect from this may be used to mitigate any development or project parking or whatever we need in the quarry, whatever might happen down the road there.
Correct.
Through the mayor, I just wanted to answer the development potential question. So as Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer pointed out, it is pretty well developed area except for the quarry site. So right now we do not have any projections of a significant redevelopment project now that the Holiday Inn expansion's already pulled their building permits and well on their way, obviously. I think the only other site I can think of that has some redevelopment potential, because it's mostly single story, is the hotel at Nick's. I can't remember the name right now. But again, we have no indication that they're looking to expand.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any public comment on this item?
I have not received anything yet, but let me just double check to see if anything additional has come in.
Okay, just a reminder for public comment, you can email publiccomment@ci.pacifica.ca.us. Please specify in the subject which item number you are wanting to comment on.
Mayor Martin, I don't see any public comments on this item.
Okay, great. Any other council discussion?
I would just like to say I'm very happy to see that this fee is being raised. I think we were selling ourselves too cheap at $3,000 a parking space. And I think this is pretty realistic if you look at what other agencies are charging for in lieu fees. And I think it's about time we finally did it. So do we need to read this whole resolution, or could we just?
No, you can just say adopt the resolution attached to the staff report as amended.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution attached to the staff report as amended by the city attorney.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
And that resolution passes 4-0.
Great.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item for consideration number 6, City Council goals and priority projects for fiscal year 2020 through into 2021. Proposed action adopt City Council goals and priority projects for the mentioned years. So City Manager, you're going to give us a presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Martin and council members. Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager, and I'm pleased to present the recommended goals for fiscal year 2020-21, recommended goals and priority projects. As the council is very aware, it's a unique and challenging time right now with the coronavirus response and the health orders, shelter in place, and as a result, the normal annual goal setting process that we do, which was going to occur in the middle of March, was canceled. So next slide, please. So this year, I'm recommending that we, because of staff and resource impacts and our focus on coronavirus response, and the fact that we have a very robust list of priority projects for this fiscal year, that we're essentially mainly rolling over the goals to next year. And the recommended action tonight is to adopt the City Council goals and priority projects for fiscal year 2020-21. Next slide. For context, the importance of annually adopting goals, even if we weren't able to have an in-person full-day goal-setting session, is that we still need to, as part of our budget development process, we really need to set priorities to guide budget development and the priorities, project priorities that we're going to focus on throughout the fiscal year. It's also important as part of this process and adoption of the priorities is to communicate those to the public. It's also important that it's a communication of the council's expectations to me as the city manager of the work that's to be accomplished, so we can focus our resources and staff time. And I did want to call out, every year we have this difference. We have the set of 7 value-laden goals, and then we have the longer list of priority-specific projects. And we'll go over each of those. I want to say a little bit more about the coronavirus impact on goal setting. I mentioned that we were set and the materials had gone out, the advanced materials for all the homework necessary to do the all-day goal setting session. We had a facilitator position to do that in the middle of March, and that was going to be the Saturday. The Tuesday prior to that was when the shelter-in-place order came out. And we made the, I think, wise decision that the goal setting couldn't really be done with physical distancing requirements, and we did postpone it. Now, I mentioned that as a result of that, and as a result that all of our staff resources and time and the style of our meetings are constrained by this virtual environment, we're very focused on the coronavirus response. We haven't had a lot of extra time to really focus on new goals for next year. So rolling over the goals and priority projects for this year makes sense. And, the positive thing is that, as you'll see, we really have a robust set of goals. We have a lot of work that's underway, a lot of exciting things that we, under the council's direction, are achieving this year. And we've hit a bit of a delay in that process, but there's a lot of work to continue to be done on all of those projects. So we do have a full set of recommended priority projects for next year. In addition to ones that are rolling over, as the council is aware, there are 2 significant projects or issues that came up mid-year this year, and I'm recommending that those be added to the list. We'll get to those, but that's the evaluation of the city's tree program, as well as handling or taking action related to the civic center building health and safety issues. Next slide, please. So what you have before you here is the draft of the 7 goals from this current fiscal year that are recommended to continue into the next fiscal year. I won't go into the detailed language in these, but they cover fiscal sustainability, an engaged community, stewardship of city infrastructure, a healthy and compassionate community, environmental sustainability, a strong city workforce infrastructure, and maintaining a safe community. During last year's goal setting session, the council really dug into these goals, made a handful of revisions to them from the previous year, and this is a representative set of values from all of the council collaboratively. So I'll be recommending that we continue these into the next year. Next slide, please. And what I'd like to do now is just run down the list of the recommended goals. Again, as I said, there's 19 listed here. 17 of them are just repeated but refreshed for the new scope for the new fiscal year, and 2 are those new ones. So I can go just briefly over them. We have continuation of the Beach Boulevard seawall and promenade replacement project, and we're interviewing consultants this week actually for that project, for the design and evaluation, and that's a huge project. We have the complete implementation of the oversized vehicle ordinance and evaluate the feasibility of a permanent parking program for unhoused in motorhomes in conjunction with the efforts of the Resource Center and Unhoused in Pacifica Task Force. We made a lot of effort, a lot of progress on that this year, but the coronavirus impact has delayed those important meetings until later. We have item 3, continue efforts to support affordable housing initiatives, including evaluation of developing an affordable housing impact fee. We have a significant number of efforts underway related to housing, and those will be continuing as well. Item 4 is to continue economic development efforts, and one of the important components of that scope for this year, given the impending recession we're headed into, is to focus on business recovery efforts following the coronavirus impacts. Item 5, continue efforts toward construction of a new Sharp Park Library and a renovated Sanchez Library. Council is very aware of the efforts that have been underway regarding those important projects. Additionally, items 6 and 7, completing the general plan update and completing a Sharp Park specific plan. Critical projects, slightly delayed because of the virtual meeting forum currently. We have important meetings to occur that should occur in person. That's the council's preference, and so those are continuing. Next slide, please. Goal 8, or prioritized project 8, completing an update to the climate action plan and continuing implementation of measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, including to evaluate whether to form a city climate action committee. That's continuing from the existing year. 9, beginning construction of a renovated public plaza along Beach Boulevard. That process, the design process, has been underway and will be proceeding. Item 10 is to begin a strategic planning process to articulate a long-term and financially sustainable vision for Pacifica. That's what we this year had called the Vision 2025 process, and the scoping and putting an RFP out for that process is delayed currently, but can continue into next year. The Manor Drive overcrossing project with Caltrans has been a significant project with many numerous phases, and moving into next year, it would be to start the project initiation document and environmental phase for that project. Prioritized project 12 is to continue the Esplanade Avenue bluff erosion protection projects to protect the critical city infrastructure there. 13, pursue ongoing advocacy efforts for council identified issues of importance to Pacifica, but which are not specific city projects. This is a general catch-all goal that relates to a number of advocacy efforts the city has been engaged in over time. Some of those relate to the Historical Society's Ocean Shore rail car issue, relates to the airport roundtable and overflight noise, and it relates to fire education, insurance challenges, a number of items such as those. The item 14 is to continue the process to evaluate the feasibility of a potential bike park. Some progress has been made on that this year by the Community Bike Park Committee, and that hasn't yet come back to the Parks and Rec Commission and the council, so it needs to continue into next year. Additionally, we had some study sessions on this, but completing further study of the Safe and Sane Legal Fireworks Program. Prioritized Project 16 is to continue implementation of litter strategies that were identified for this year. Next slide, please. And then the two new ones, as I mentioned, were to evaluate the city tree program and the heritage tree ordinance. That's a significant undertaking. It's work that we can begin this year. And item 18, evaluate and remediate the Civic Center facility health and safety issues. The final goal also is kind of a catch-all with a number of continuing important projects underneath it. Many of the projects listed under this goal for this current fiscal year have been completed, but these are the ones that haven't been completed, or new pieces of their scope need to continue into the next year. I won't read through all of those. Next slide, please. In terms of fiscal impact, I mentioned, one of the challenges with all of our attention diverted to the coronavirus impact, and starting our work on a kind of a condensed budget process, that we don't have, for all of these goals, we don't have all of the potential financial impact. For example, the Civic Center remediation project, those are numbers that we're working on, and we intend to be bringing more specific numbers related to these projects to the council beginning with the May 11th, 2020 budget presentation. Next slide, and I believe that concludes my presentation about recommended goals and priority projects for this next fiscal year.
Great. Let's see, do we have any hands raised? I don't see any hands raised. I will commend the city for getting together and talking about all of these projects, many of which are mid-cycle. And I will also release the floor to Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer. You just had your hand?
Yes, thank you. Just a question, it's more of a process question in terms of documentation. In regard to the document that City Manager Woodhouse was just showing us, which is kind of what I call the one-pager. In our packet, there was a longer document which had, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a electronic version of the packet. It was on it started on packet page, I think 151 there. Packet page 151, and it was a list, a table really of the proposed priority projects. That is the longer version of that same explanation, and it goes through packet page 156. My question is, for tonight, for the purposes of tonight, if there are questions or edits or things that we want to ask about in that table, is now the time to do that? Or is there going to be another point at which we want to ask those questions? I don't have dramatic things, but I do have a couple of potential additions. And not sure if now's the time to bring that up or if it's something to defer for a future council meeting.
I thank you. That's a great question. And let me summarize a little bit about the process. To answer your question directly, I think it's appropriate for the council to discuss some aspects or ask questions about details of these projects as we're thinking about them now, but to not get into a project specific discussion about that topic because it hasn't been agendized that we're going to talk in detail about, let's say the Beach Boulevard seawall. But in terms of the intention of the report is to really provide a more detailed description of what that priority project is about. And then as the council is aware, at the beginning of the next fiscal year, once the goals are adopted, the priority projects are adopted, staff does a lot of detailed work to develop detailed work plans with milestones and budget allocated, et cetera, for each of these projects. So there's a lot of detailed work that follows up to develop a more robust work plan. The report just gives a snapshot of what is the description of this project, and in some of those cases, what's new related to this project compared to what's already been accomplished during this fiscal year. So that's some comments about the process, and then if the council wants to discuss elements of these, I think you can, in the sense that it's not a decision about that specific project, but it's talking about the scope or understanding the project.
Okay. So with my penchant for getting into the weeds, recognizing that, I'm going to give an example of the kind of question that I have, and the mayor and my co-council members and the city manager and the city attorney can tell me if that's like a, yeah, we're going to talk about that later thing or not. I point you, let me see, how does the assistant city manager say, come with me to packet page 152. I'm looking at project 4. And I noticed the reference to the Silicon Valley Economic Development Association. For example, I would like to see Samsita listed there. I know that's a nitpicky detail, but I feel like it's in light of everything that's been happening with COVID and the amount of work and dependency we've, created around that organization, I would want to see that one called out, for example.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. That's a great point.
Is that something to say now, or
Sure.
is that something to save for later and discuss it later?
No, staff will note that, and I think it fits with what the description is there, is that really the intent is to, the economic development efforts are focusing on business recovery efforts, and there's numerous critical sources of information related to that, and Samsita's efforts currently are very critical, as well as the Silicon Valley Economic Development Alliance and other organizations. So we can specifically be mentioning Samsita when we develop that work plan.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Should I go on with a couple other questions that I have, or does someone else want to talk?
No, go ahead.
All right, packet page, going backwards, packet page 151, priority project 3, item F. I have a suggestion about the phrasing of F. I'm suggesting that we strike the first word housing and change it to sharing. Continue sharing knowledge and best practices, and then strike that next sharing and just say on housing issues. Continue sharing knowledge and best practices on housing issues, as well as tracking housing related legislation would be the way it reads in the final, or my recommendation it would be. Does that make sense? Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then on packet page 152, project 5, I did reach out to the current president of, this is the library one. I did reach out to the current president of the Library Foundation, Michael Ransom, and the vice president or past president, Ellen Ron, and the library director, Julie Finkling. I was just trying to get a sense of their thoughts on whether the San Mateo County Library Foundation ought to be listed among those entities that are listed in that item. When we last, worked on this document a year ago, say, that foundation wasn't a finalized thing. It wasn't, and I defer to Council Member O'Neill also, in terms of, he's part of the JPA, the Library JPA, and knows a lot about how the San Mateo County Library Foundation has come to be. Certainly, we've had discussions within the Library Advisory Committee. It's been mentioned many times, and I'm liaison to that. So I just felt like perhaps it should be mentioned. And the president of the current president of the Library Foundation did respond, yes, he agreed with that. So I'm just putting that out there. And then I have a question on project 8. I don't know what a DNV space GL is. And I realize, we use acronyms because, they're handy, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so sorry about that acronym and not spelling it out in that description. I see Director Weremeister's on. I'll give the quick response. That's the odd name of the consulting firm that is being utilized for that. And
okay.
Tina,
And it's actually, it is an odd name and it's not an acronym. That's their company name.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thanks very much for clarifying that. I did appreciate the spelling out of whatever the next thing was after that, because I was also not sure about what that meant. So thank you for doing your best to spell those things out when you can. One other question. Oh, along those same lines, project 12, packet page 154. In the later paragraph, we mentioned USACE as an acronym. I think before we spell out, and you do, what it stands for, which is U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It took me a while to figure out what that was, and I think it's important to really spell that out kind of high in that paragraph, because it's going to be an important agency for us. It is and will continue to be an important agency for us.
Yeah, I got that.
I know this is kind of like a thing, but in that same area, twice we use the word hopes. We hope that they'll help us, and we do. But I wonder if there isn't, it feels like we're further along than hope to me. And maybe I'm off base there. Maybe I just have a lot of hope, and that's why I think that. So I just throw that out there for council's consideration.
How about the goal is to gain the support of, or some variation of that?
I like that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Mike or Sue, anything to add? Mike, are you muted?
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry.
Okay.
Irishman not talking, my God. I was talking about there, instead of the city hopes, how about the ongoing discussions with the USACE? It should help us in getting this done, something like that. Because we are having ongoing discussions. And So in regards to the Library Foundation, the San Mateo County Library Foundation is geared more for support of programs more than building the structure. And going back to the JPA, the city's responsible for building the structure, and then the county does the foundations and stuff. So I really don't know. We can certainly mention it in there, but I don't know how much support they would be giving us for the San Mateo County Library Foundation.
I would like to be mentioned unless there's a legal or, otherwise reason not to.
No, I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, I can add a little clarification on that. The San Mateo County Library Foundation has indicated that they can serve as a fund collecting body for Pacifica's library projects. So,
I'm sure they would do that. I mean, if somebody wanted to write a check.
Yeah, exactly. What all of these very good comments and edits are noted. And as the council knows, as Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer said, there's kind of the one sheet listing the titles of the projects, and that's really what the council is adopting. When we develop the more detailed and refine the description and work plan, we'll make sure all of these edits get in there. Those work plans are public documents as well. And, as each of these projects comes forward, or important milestones in each of these projects comes forward to the council for action, that's a time when specific pieces can also be edited and suggested, et cetera.
One item that I think ongoing advocacy is, I think the city, given the numerous neighborhood-specific projects we are continually being contacted about, tree management, paving roads, doing, hither and yon, I really do think we need to look at some sort of education to the citizens about forming assessment districts. Because especially in the next couple of years, we're not going to be flush with cash to do any of these extra items. But I think letting the citizens know that they do have an option for achieving neighborhood goals through an assessment district is something that we should educate them about, and then it's up to them to do it.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. It reminded me that I didn't mention that earlier in the staff report, there's a list of several projects that are anticipated to be completed during this fiscal year. And one of those is the education materials about assessment districts. We actually have done that research. We have a draft web page and information that is pending review to be launched that will help the community residents understand about how assessment districts work, how they can be utilized. So that is something that is happening and will be completed this fiscal year.
I'm sorry, I missed that when I read this.
That's okay.
Sue Vargas, you have anything?
Sorry. No, I have nothing to add to this. I thought it was really well detailed. I know we once talked about the order and that we're basically doing everything at once and it's not based on order. And I thought that was important. And I agree that I can't stand the acronyms. So it would be nice if there weren't any in there. Thank you.
Great.
Mayor
Go ahead.
Martin, I just wanted to mention that we do have a couple of public comments on this item for whenever you're ready to hear them.
Okay, I still have comments too. Mike?
I was just going to say is I am concerned given that the ongoing issue with COVID, plus we know we're going to be having some revenue losses, that maybe we prioritize some of these or give staff instruction that, like the bike park. I mean, I do believe a bike park would be great and everything else, but until there's actually a serious group looking at it, getting funding or whatever, how much staff time should we spend on that? I mean, given you got some complex issues like the homelessness and the parking ordinance for that, and then the, the beach repair and all that other stuff. So I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about staff time.
I agree. I think we're going to be hearing a little bit more about the budget a little bit later on, so people will get a better understanding as to what else we have going on. Sue Vaterlos, you have your hand raised?
I think, Mike, that in order for the bike park people to try to get funding and go forward with their project, I think it has to be indicated in our reports that we are thinking about it. So the funds, I think it's a circle.
No, right. I mean, like in the school district when I was there, we used to put stuff into the strategic plan, and then every year it was just no funding available, no funding available. But when we applied for something, we were able to say, this is in our strategic plan. Okay, and I think, an attitude, some mechanisms such as that versus actually having staff pursue something that, given the amount, the bandwidth we are going to have. I mean, childcare is going to be expanding because of, the waiting lists and everything, or it might be expanding. I don't know. We have to decide. But I just think the bandwidth is going to be constricted. Everybody's talking about 5G. We're still around 3G at city staff, so.
Okay. So I have a few comments. First is thank you for putting this together, city manager. I know it's not easy, but for the public, we have a lot to consider. Budget is part of it, but also the ability to gather is a huge part of this. So for some of these that are going to be put on hold or pushed a little bit later, it's because we don't have the ability to gather, and we want to gather for your public input. So like the tree, item 17, for instance, is the heritage tree update and evaluation of city tree program and heritage tree ordinance. So we really want to make sure that there are public meetings and community engagement for this. So those things are going to be pushed a little bit, and just keep that in mind as we go through this and be a little bit more patient. Trust us, the council members, when we say we really want this stuff done too. But we understand that we're under certain restrictions right now. So the other thing is just to note for the public that item number 2 here is to complete the implementation of the oversized vehicle ordinance and evaluate the feasibility of it. So have a look at that. That's packet page 151. And if you do have comments, we keep receiving comments on this item. Pay attention to our council agendas. Keep speaking up and making your voice heard when this comes up is when it's going to be important for those comments to come up and about. So it is in here, and that's just a note for everyone. The other one was, you were just talking about assessment districts, Mike, and one such neighborhood that, well, there's a lot of neighborhoods that probably should consider this, but I know everybody on council was talking about Rockaway. There's some things going on there, but just for everybody in that neighborhood to understand and stay tuned, because item number 7 is our narrative budget report. So we're going to find a little bit more about how this pandemic is affecting us locally and on our budget. The other one was item number 15. I think we do really need to start talking about, and not here obviously, but it's about safe and sane fireworks. I think Redwood City already canceled their fireworks display for this year, but I just want to put it out there that whoever is selling fireworks is probably going to need to get creative this year, or I don't know how it's going to work, but we can really use this as an opportunity to try to think long and hard about this. What are we going to do? And item number 15, I'm glad to see that it's still on here. It's going to come up quick, I think. And even though it's over the course of the next year, who knows what's going to happen with 4th of July, given our shelter in place was just extended through May. So we'll see, but keep your eyes on that too, everyone. And I just adding that as color because not everybody's looking at the agenda that we're all looking at right in front of us. So if we just say item number 15, add this, just for the public to understand what we're talking about here. Is there any more hand raised in terms of council members before I open it for public comment? No? Okay. Clerk Coffey?
So far I've received 2 public comments on this item. The first one is from Peter Key and Lindemar. The subject is agenda item 6, city council goals and priority projects for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. The city council should not adopt the current goals and priorities. This is because the budget shortfall from the COVID-19 crisis is unknown. The new library, the Sharp Park specific plan, the new plaza, and the bike park should be cut from budget, not because they aren't needed, but because things need to be cut from Pacifica's budget. Every cut item will be painful, but many things are more urgent than a new library or the SPSP, the Sharp Park specific plan, or the plaza, Peter Key, Lindemar, Pacifica. And the second comment on this item is from Sue Degree, and she states, great staff report, 3 comments. The staff report shows a lot of hard work. Affordable housing needs to be defined clearly. For example, what dollar amounts qualify a development for affordable? Affordable can be very nebulous. The chart in the housing element depicting what the city has provided per the various housing allotments also needs to be clearly before council and the public and staff at all times. Thank you, Sue Degree. And that concludes the public comments that we've received on this item so far.
Okay. Safe to move on then? Bring it back to council for discussion.
Just the one comment in regards to some of these projects are grant funded where we've already received some of the money or are receiving donations. So it would not be prudent for us not to continue doing something if we've already received the commitment of funds or that's what and the city manager can correct me, but I believe the plaza on Esplanade is being paid for mostly by some outside funds, or am I wrong? Or
The when you say the plaza on Esplanade, do you mean the
we're
bluff
getting some
infrastructure
equipment?
protection projects
Yeah.
on Esplanade? Correct. Yeah, there's a whole complex matchup of various grant funding sources related to those critical coastal bluff protection projects.
So
infrastructure projects.
So it would be more prudent for us to continue forward than not to adopt them tonight. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Okay. Make a motion that we adopt the goals as stated in the staff report as they were amended.
Okay, I think Sue
Second.
has had her hand. Okay, great. We'll have a roll call vote.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlaus,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
And that passes 4-0 for item number 6 for the adoption of the city council goals and priority projects for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Okay, it's 9:10. Do we need a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Okay, we will be back at 9:15.
please. What we'll run through is discuss a little bit for the public what the purpose of the narrative budget is, review the budget development schedule this year. It's slightly condensed due to the effect of coronavirus. Then we'll go through in detail our general fund financial condition and a lot of the assumptions that are being built into our forecast and what we're looking at for next fiscal year. And then really the heart of tonight is to go through 9 different budget strategies. They're listed here. I won't read them off because we're going to be going through each one of those individually during this presentation. Next slide. So as the council is aware, the narrative budget is really a high-level view at getting some direction regarding strategies from the council to help guide our budget development. And we, in order to paint the context, we will be reviewing our revenue and expenditure trends. The staff report before you has a lot more detail than you'll hear during this presentation. As I mentioned, we'll go over the specific budget strategies. And on May 11th is when we come back to kick off a more detailed dive into the numbers for next fiscal year. Tonight, you'll hear some high-level numbers about our deficit situation and our projections. But May 11th is when we really get into specific budget recommendations. Next slide. So in terms of the budget schedule for this year, because of some delays related to the coronavirus response that we're focused on, this is slightly condensed from our normal process during the year. And we are at the goals adoption and narrative budget discussion tonight. May 4th, as every year, the CIP goes to the Planning Commission for a consistency determination with the general plan. I mentioned May 11th, we'll have a robust presentation about all departments and the fee schedule. And May 26th is kind of a placeholder for updates and discussion of other funds and follow-up. As council is very aware, the economic uncertainty that we're in right now is changing week by week. And, you know, a month from now, we might have some different information. One huge variable that has not helped us out so far is whether there's any federal relief funds for local governments of our size. And who knows, if we keep our fingers crossed, maybe there will be some by then, but we don't know at this point. And then in June is when we do the public hearings for budget, CIP, and the fee schedule, with the formal budget adoption on June 22nd. I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Assistant City Manager Hines to dive into some of the background.
Oh, so can we have the next slide? Thank you, City Manager Woodhouse. We just wanted to just give you a general idea of how our revenues and expenditures are changing over the last 5 years. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we wanted to kind of show you that our revenue on average is growing about 3.6% over the last 5 years. And that's decent. You know, you know, we'd hope for more, but at least it's on an upward trend. However, our expenditures are also growing at almost twice that of revenue. And so we've got to keep an eye on the expenditures as they creep up. And so this creates the exercise that we have to do and have to perform every year to make sure that the budget is balanced and that we have to constrain these expenditures within expected revenues. Next slide, please. And by the way, if there's any questions, you know my policy. This is a presentation and a conversation at the same time. So you feel free to ask questions. The fund condition, or the statement, or the condition of the general fund right now, and you see this separation between expenditures, which are in red, and revenues, which are in blue. And so we're on the wrong side of that equation right now. I have baked in the impacts of the COVID situation, the COVID pandemic, and its impact on our general fund. Right now, in the current year, we're looking at a gap of 1.6 million or thereabouts. In the, I'm sorry, we're looking at a gap of 1.7 million, and then the budget year, we're looking at a gap right now, it's 1.6 million. And so those gaps have been baked into the long-term forecast. And as you can see, the lines don't cross or aren't projected to cross until 2028, 2029. And the one thing that I wanted to let you know is there are still other factors out there that have not been baked into the, or not have been factored into the long-term forecast. And one of those is pensions. And we understand through reports that the portfolio that PERS keeps our pension investments is taking a beating because of this whole pandemic, has taken a beating on because of this whole pandemic. So I'm expecting there to be some negative impact that's going to be doled out to the cities at some point in the future. The other thing that isn't factored into here, into these projections, are future labor increases. And so all of the labor numbers have been held flat. And so those will probably change the expenditure lines as well. Next slide, please.
So I will actually, I want to take a minute before we jump into the budget strategies and put Assistant City Manager Hines on the spot here to discuss a little bit about our major revenue categories and the projections that we're seeing. I can begin while Lorenzo is getting his information together. I can just begin to speak about property tax. That's one of our largest revenue sources. And it's important to recognize that in recessions and large recessions like is forecasted here, the impact of property tax revenues lags behind by 1.5 to 2 years. So in our forecast, our 10-year forecast, while for this next year, we're stable with property tax, there could be some impacts in the year after and more in the third year. And that'll be an important point as we start talking about these strategies. But if Assistant City Manager Hines could talk a little bit about our other revenue categories to provide context for these strategies.
Okay, so I'll pick up with property taxes. We have a consultant through a company called HDL that works with us on property tax estimates. And so they have indicated to us that the property tax estimates that we have for this fiscal year and next fiscal year are still relevant. And because of that lag that City Manager Woodhouse just mentioned. The other estimate that they also provide to us is our vehicle license fee revenue. And the VLF dollars are about 11% of our general fund revenues. Property taxes are about 35, 36%. So for the most part, half of our revenues for the short term are pretty stable. We also talked to HDL about our sales tax. And you'll see in the staff report that there was only a minor downgrade to sales tax for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Because apparently, according to our consultants, that even though we're losing dollars on the brick and mortar stores that are closed and considered non-essential, we're making up sales tax dollars due to the online. And so we're seeing an increase in that, and that is somewhat mitigating that gap. created by the brick and mortar business not being open. The other revenue that I wanted to mention is transient occupancy tax. And this year we had a budget of, we budgeted 2.1 million TOT revenues. And for this year, I've downgraded it down to about 1.5 million. And that is due to the low occupancy levels that we're seeing in the city's hoteliers. I think staff report mentions that we're looking at occupancy rates as high as 30% and as low as 20%. And so, things aren't going really well with the hoteliers. And so that TOT is slowly drifting in. Now, the short-term rental industry that we have here in Pacifica, we're keeping an eye on that as well. So far, for the first 3 quarters of 2019, 2020, those revenues have come in as expected. And so we just got a check last week. And so we'll be looking for another quarterly check from Airbnb sometime in July. Now, granted, Airbnb only represents a portion of our short-term rental market. And so we will continue our efforts to be diligent to make sure that all of those short-term rental operators who aren't operating via Airbnb are also paying their fair share. And those are sort of the big revenues. One of the major issues that we faced this year because of the pandemic is the closure of our childcare facilities and the impact it's had on our parks programs. And so the loss of the revenues associated with both of those activities is also impacting, and it is a part of that $1.7 million gap that we're seeing. Into the budget year, and we'll talk more about this at the next meeting, but into the budget year, we're assuming that our park operations, both childcare and our programming, will be non-operational this summer. And if it happens and we're if we can get back to business, great. But my policy, we typically build our budgets in a very conservative manner. And so we're going to assume that the first 3 months of the fiscal year that there'll be no park operations. And that's one of the things that's driving the budget year deficit as well. We are taking steps to control expenditures. We've reduced contractual line items. We've also put a freeze on positions that weren't already in the pipeline. We've also looked at we're also looking at a number of budget strategies that City Manager Woodhouse is going to go through here in a minute. But I wanted you to know that we are reacting proactively to the pandemic and doing the best job we can to, again, react and make sure that we stay balanced and just remain as diligent as we can.
Great, thank you for that, Lorenzo. A little bit of the revenue context. So I'll just dive in, unless there's questions about that background information and financial context, I'll dive in with the recommended budget strategies. As the council is aware, the council adopted a reserves policy, which we call our fund balance commitment policy, and updated that in recent years. And 2 years ago, began actually putting dollars into our reserves. So this first recommendation, it relates to use of our committed general fund reserves as well as undesignated general fund dollars. And the economic crisis that we're in is why reserves are created and funded to begin with. So the specific dollar amounts will be brought back at the next meeting, but The general recommendation is that given the current level of our reserves, as well as our childcare reserves, to utilize these reserves as part of the overall strategy to balance not all, but a portion of the, to balance all of our current year general fund budget, but a portion of the general fund budget for 2020-21. And while replenishing our compensated absences reserve and our legal reserve. And then this is a key part of this recommendation is, and maintaining a prudent amount of reserve balances for those future years, years 2 and 3 and beyond of economic uncertainty. That's budget strategy recommendation number 1 is to utilize reserves. Next slide, please.
Kevin, did you want us to comment on each one of these as you talk about it? Or do you want us to wait till you do all of it?
Whatever the preference of the council is.
Can you go back to that slide? Because I'd like to just ask a couple questions here. Okay, thank you. Okay, given the current level of fund balance commitment. Now the fund balance commitment is the fund we've been using for reserves, right? So that's basically our savings account, correct?
Correct.
Okay, fund balance undesignated. Now, where did that money come from and what's it supposed to be used for?
That represents the excess of revenues over the expenditures over the past few years. And so that balance has grown over the years, and it's mainly due to our ability to constrain our expenditures within our revenues. It's just that we've been fortunate enough that our revenues have come in a little bit higher every year.
Okay, so the fund balance commitment, our savings account is money we physically put in there. The fund balance undesignated is basically the rounding up of our checking and stuff like that. So is that, we've never put that into the fund balance commitment, that's just kind of in a different fund?
Yeah, it's just in a different category. It's there for use, but what we're trying to do is build that fund balance commitment because that becomes a formal reserve.
Okay, designated for child care reserves, are those required by the state due to licensing? Are these capital reserves? What kind of reserves are they?
Those are the reserves that are accumulated due to the excess of child care revenues that we receive from the state and from participants over the expenditures that we've expended to run that program.
Okay, now is there a legal requirement we need to keep those reserves? And if so, what is the percentage we have to keep of operating budget?
Well, as far as I know, there is no legal requirement at the state. However, there is probably a regulatory expectation that we spend all child care monies toward child care expenditures. Council set up the child care reform some years ago, I believe 2010, 2009, and the particular purpose, at least at the local level, was to keep these monies in the child care program.
Okay, now if I remember, we've spent some of that money on something
right
this year or fairly recently, didn't we?
We spent $290,000 on improvements to child care facilities.
Okay, so we did those, okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you come back with these numbers, one, you're going to come back with what the balances are of all these numbers. Two, but can you check in to see, is there a legal requirement for reserves due to state licensing? One, and do we, in the capital improvement plan, do we have any future child care expenses for facilities that we might need to use these reserves for?
Okay. Well,
okay.
Director Perez and Director Bautista will be with me next time, and they can definitely let you know, and we'll come back with that information. And if you want to see the balances, you can look at packet page 173, and those are the balances. Those are our estimated balances as of last Friday.
Okay, okay.
And if I might add, Councilmember O'Neill, in past years, we did use some of the undesignated general fund balance to fund our fund balance commitment policy. So portions of that money that's where some of that has come from. The balance that you see on that packet page is only 7.5% of our annual general fund expenditures, and our policy level is to get to 10% and then reevaluate. A typical reserve policy is more in the 15 to 25% of general fund expenditures. So Pacifica has never had well-funded reserves, but thankfully at this point in time, we have been prudent over the last couple of years to start building those up, because we're going to need to use some of them this year if the council approves that mechanism.
Okay, so then so basically the fund balance commitment wasn't filled up, wasn't used, was not funded by current receipts. It was just money that we put some in, but then if we had extra money because of budget, revenue exceeding expenditures, we just threw those in there too.
Right, you're right. So Councilman O'Neill, functions like a typical
Right.
checking account, savings account situation. If you have excess dollars that you want to put away for a rainy day in a very formal way, then we move those dollars out of undesignated and we move them into the fund balance commitment. It also shows if having that fund balance commitment also impacts our financial statements, because it shows investors, the folks at Standard & Poor's and Moody's, that we've actually taken a step to establish formal reserves, which is
Right.
which is a big deal in their eyes.
And that is a congratulations to you for getting our bond rating raised twice in the past since I've been on the council. So congratulations to you.
My pleasure.
And thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, now while replenishing the compensated absences reserve, and I'm doing this more for education for the public.
Right.
Compensated absence reserve is the money we have in a savings account for when some of the contracts say in PERS policy says that they will get paid their, is it vacation or vacation or sick leave?
So when we have longtime employees retire out, they typically have some pretty impressive vacation balances. And so there's usually a pretty large payout for some of our folks that have been with us 20, 25, 30 years. And so that compensated absences is there to support the separation cost of folks that have left the city. It takes the pressure off of the departments to build that contingency into their budgets every year, because we don't know who's going and when they're going. But when they go, the departments may not have necessarily built those dollars into their budget. So we've got a fund set aside that if someone goes, then we can tap that fund, and that fund will be used to replenish the department's budgets. And you saw a little bit of it when we did the mid-year.
Right, right.
And, so mid-year, we had roughly 221,000 payout over this past, half of fiscal year. And so we've drained the compensated absences reserve, and we'll be looking to replenish it when we put the new budget, the 2021 budget in place. By the way, that extra 21,000 was absorbed by the departments, and so they felt that they could do that.
Okay. And then the last question, and the legal reserve is money for the legal services if something like district elections comes by and we have to pay for that, or an election if we have to pay for it or whatever, right?
Right. So the city attorney's budget is about 500,000, and that's for sort of general city attorney work. If there is additional work that falls into that category or something special, then yes, we have another $100,000 reserve just in case. And this year we actually used 75,000 of that reserve because there were some particular issues that popped up and we needed to address those. And so we'll be looking to replenish the legal reserve as well.
Okay.
And I
Mhm.
Thank
might
you.
also add, Councilmember O'Neill, that that reserve is also for unexpected litigation. That
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what I could consider that legal costs. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for going through that with me, Michelle and Lorenzo.
And I just wanted to mention, Councilman O'Neill, for those folks listening, the city's fund balance commitment policies are on fund packet page 177 and 178.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, next slide, please. So budget strategy number 2 relates to utilizing our excess educational revenue augmentation fund revenues. As the council is well aware, these funds called ERAF funds that we receive but can't count on receiving every year, but we have received them every year, are by previous council action pre-allocated to fund the Pacifica Resource Center donation of $88,000 per year, the Pacific Beach Coalition $5,000 donation, and over the years, as well as last year, in special cases, this fund, these excess revenues, if received, can help fund other important priority projects. This year, because of our budget deficit, while I'm recommending we do the pre-allocation, or I should have mentioned that in the pre-allocation, the balance of the excess ERAF goes to our disaster accounting fund, which is really related to our coastal erosion and shoreline protection projects. And this year, I'm recommending that while we'll allocate funding to our NGOs, then also use a portion of this to help balance next year's deficit. And then the remainder of any excess ERAF after that portion is used would go to the disaster accounting fund.
And Lorenzo, the balance of our disaster accounting fund, do you have that off the top of your head?
No, I don't. I'll have to
Okay.
for you.
I know I didn't ask you ahead of time, so I just wanted to check.
And just for background, I'll say to explain ERAF a little bit more, that this goes back to 1992 when the state legislature took action to shift local property tax revenues away from cities, counties, and special districts to an educational revenue augmentation fund to fund schools to meet minimum funding requirements. The excess ERAF is when those minimum funding requirements are met and there's some excess that then get distributed back to certain cities, counties, and special districts. So if there's no additional questions.
I'm sorry, it's
Yep.
Deirdre. So I'm just looking at packet page 174. That was our distribution for 2019-2020 of the ERAF. So I think what I think I heard is we're going to do our best to continue distribution of the funds as we did last year for NGOs, and or maybe a portion of that will not be paid out. You know, we know this is not guaranteed, and then the remainder will come out of the disaster accounting fund. Is that what I heard?
So the total 93,000 to the NGOs will be paid. The to be determined amount to help us balance the budget for next year, and then the remainder after that will go to the disaster accounting fund.
Okay.
And you know, we
that-
estimate each year. Last year we did, because of a supplemental payment, we received a higher ERAF than we had in previous years. This year, you know, we estimate we might receive in the 1.7 to 1.9 million. I believe that's correct. If yeah, Lorenzo's shaking his head.
Yes.
So, you know, that's the rough estimate of the amount, but we can't rely on that from year to year.
Okay, and two questions. Is that number correct? 88 there, isn't it supposed to be 94, 93, 93,000 under NGO, page 174.
That may just be a typo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question was, there was it was economic development management position or economic sustainability position that we never ended up hiring, or the hiring fell through. That was also supposed to come out of ERAF too. So is that potentially going to still be on the books for, because we didn't have a time frame for that. We just said we wanted to get somebody on board to work on these projects. So is that the
I believe what the mayor is referring to is our management analyst position, for which the council budgeted 125,000 for this fiscal year. And I don't recall, I don't think that was out of ERAF. I think that was out of our undesignated general fund balance.
okay.
But as the council is aware, we've had some hiring challenges for that position. And related to one of the budget strategies later here, you know, we've done interviews and we have some candidates for that position. But the shelter in place and the uncertainty about moving, all of the candidates are from out of state, and moving is presenting some issues. And we're still reviewing our strategies for filling critical positions where recruitments have already occurred or already planned to occur.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so if no more questions about strategy 2, we can move on to strategy 3. Really what this is to create the expectation that because of the economic uncertainty of this recession that we are just beginning, we fully need to count on doing a robust mid-year budget assessment. As a matter of fact, Assistant Manager Hines and Finance will be doing quarterly work, but this is just to tee up that we would like to move up our mid-year budget deliberations from February to January to be more timely. Potentially by that time, we know a little bit about how reopening of the world is occurring due to the coronavirus. But I just wanted to, nothing magical about this other than to really emphasize that we're doing our best job right now at forecasting what our financial condition is going to be next year. But 9 months from now or 8 months from now, we'll be able to have more data to be very much more specific. So I can't say if there'll be significant adjustments mid-year or not, but just to tee up the expectation that we do need to do that work. Moving on then, next slide, please. If there's a bright spot in this, as Assistant City Manager Hines likes to say, it is cannabis program revenues. And during the mid-year of this year, we recommended increasing those budgeted revenues to 300,000 and for this remainder of this fiscal year. And next year, what we estimate is we're safe to increase that to $500,000 of expected revenue from cannabis business programs. If no questions on that, I'll move on to the next item. This item is really an economic stimulus recommendation for Pacifica. While it's an expenditure and we're challenged with expenditures, it's an acknowledgement about the importance of supporting and building, stimulating our local businesses. So the council is aware of the San Mateo County Strong program underway to provide relief to the impacts of coronavirus. And many cities in the county have already made decisions to contribute to SMC Strong. And this recommendation is to to consider a one-time donation of $50,000 to SMC Strong that will be earmarked for Pacifica business assistance. And the SMC Strong program is using the San Mateo County Credit Union or San Mateo Credit Union for handling the funding and distributing the funding. And this is recommended to come out of undesignated general fund balance. If the council is supportive, when we get to discussion, supportive of this strategy, what I think will be necessary to do is bring back more specifics about this at the next city council meeting and take a specific action to be able to do that, because SMC Strong is gathering the funding and distributing the funding now, as Mayor Pro Tem Beckmeyer mentioned in her comments. The application periods have opened, and but this would be investing in our local businesses. If no questions on that, I'll move on. Next slide, please. Then strategy 6 relates to every year we typically fund, take general fund dollars to put into our vehicle replacement fund. Over the last couple of years, we've made a lot of progress at catching up on our vehicle replacement schedule. However, it is a just, you know, sort of a slightly discretionary use of funds. We have vehicle replacement needs, but we've done some good work doing that. So in this time of need, I'm recommending that we can suspend the general fund contribution for this next budget year and utilize that savings to help balance the general fund. And that dollar amount from the general fund is $237,000. No questions. Item 7 relates to current vacant positions, to initiate a hiring freeze for general fund funded positions that are not already being recruited, as well as in combination, in order to maintain the services that all of our positions are necessary to provide. And as the council knows, Pacifica is very leanly staffed compared to many cities in our county. But we want to take a look, if we're going to be holding positions vacant through the hiring freeze, we want to evaluate various staffing mechanisms that could potentially provide temporary financial savings, but also improve employee retention and succession planning efforts, whether it's you know, retasking what some employees are doing and reclassifying their positions to do that. There's a combination strategy here that might work to our benefit to help us also close a little bit of the dollar difference in our deficit.
Kevin, definition, general fund funded position is basically everything except wastewater treatment, correct? Or
yeah, primarily. Mm-hmm. Some of our streets program is funded through other tax revenue sources, but that are technically different funds. But
so that means that includes police, fire, and public works, correct?
Yeah, as well as administration
And
finance,
TVNR and all that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Lorenzo, did you have any clarification regarding that?
No, I think Councilman O'Neill has it.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. The recommendation 8 really is, you know, looking at how can we contain some of our existing expenditures. So we're going through the exercise of looking at from every department what a 1% reduction in expenditures would look like And we estimate that a 1% reduction across the board could save $350,000 to help close that budget deficit. But we're going through this exercise, looking at all kinds of discretionary spending sources, whether it's training and travel or subscriptions or other types of discretionary sources to, we don't, as I said, we're very leanly staffed. We have very little discretionary funding, but a 1% goal and an exercise to go through that could help us in this situation for next year and set us up well for future years also. And then the final strategy is really just sort of another obvious one, but it's worth mentioning that we are working and tracking and really trying to advocate along with the League of California Cities for federal funding relief specific to local government that is our size of cities. So far in the various stimulus packages, there's not funding for local government at our level. And we're really the front line of a lot of the public safety work related to the coronavirus. So while we can't make assumptions in the budget for next year about that type of assistance, we will be tracking that. And should there be funding that is received, that funding would help relieve the pressure, mentioned through numerous of the other strategies. But I just think it's important to be transparent that a lot of advocacy is happening to try to make that happen. But so far, we haven't been successful.
So the primary question is, the primary cost we've gotten because of COVID is the public safety overtime, correct? And maybe the purchase of some of those sawhorse type of things?
In terms of direct costs, I mean, we have a lot of other, cleaning supplies, extra janitorial, we have a variety of small sort of direct costs. But I think that what all of the local governments are saying and trying to advocate and communicate it's all of the revenue source loss for programs that are closed, be they childcare programs, for sales tax decrease, transient occupancy tax decrease. These are the very serious impacts to cities. And if you look across California, the League of California Cities report that just came out is estimating a $7 billion reduction in revenues to local cities over the next 2 years. It's a huge number and translates into facts that in that same League of California Cities survey, 90% of cities in California are furloughing staff or cutting staff currently. And that translates into reduction of local services, be they police, fire, public works, childcare, what have you. And so I think Councilmember O'Neill, while your comment about the direct costs is important, that's a smaller dollar amount compared to the relief and sort of the stimulus that we need and that the business community needs to bring those revenues back up.
No, I agree with you because it is the loss of revenue that's causing the issues we're having now. However, I do know the $134 million that San Mateo County got was supposed to be used only for direct costs and impacts, not loss of revenue. So I was hoping that we are keeping track of any additional expenses regarding overtime and the cleaning and janitorial supplies, et cetera, are being tracked so that if that application comes out at noon, we can fill out a form by 12:30. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe not in 30 minutes, but 45 minutes. Yeah, we are
Okay,
tracking.
all right. Well, I have confidence in Lorenzo with his speed type,
We're all the departments are tracking those direct.
Okay,
impacts.
good.
And I believe that completes the presentation of the strategies. Next slide. Yes.
Okay. I don't see any hands raised. I think, Mike, I always leave it to you to ask the hard questions. You had good ones. I mean, I think, it all makes sense to me. How about any other council members have comments? I can open it up. If not,
I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to monopolize. Okay. Well, I think the problem we can't do is, just like staff and the rest of the country, is we're dealing with unknowns. And basically what Kevin is asking for is, are we open to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but you're asking for just a general direction and pointing you down a road and saying, yeah, we're open to this. You're not asking for specific budget cuts of X, Y, or even allocating money from our savings accounts to do this. You're just asking, are we open to these ideas, correct?
Correct. Because in the background, we're working on all of the detailed numbers that'll start being presented on May 11th. And once we see all of those numbers, then we can really look at, okay, well, how much makes sense and would be prudent from our reserve funds while maintaining ample reserves? How much matches up from ERAF? How much expenditure reduction from departments is really feasible without reducing services to a detrimental level, that type of thing.
Could you put up the slide that has those 9 things you want us to discuss? Because I think that would facilitate the discussion. There was one of the slides
Sure.
had all 9 on it. I think it was towards.
Yeah, it was the outline in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that would help facilitate the discussion.
So gentlemen, if I may, one thing to keep in mind, to give you some context from which to look at the strategies, is that we're not only worried about the budget for 2021, we're also looking toward the budget for 21-22 and 22-23, and how we're going to balance those budgets. It is my hope that the impact of the pandemic will be over by those out years, but in case they aren't, in case it isn't, we need to be ready when we're developing the 21-22 budget and 22-23 budget. And so these strategies help us deal with this year's budget, yet offers the maximum protection of our reserves. And so we'll continue to take a similar approach each year. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is protect these reserves, because we're going to need them in case it gets any more difficult.
And I should clarify, Councilmember O'Neill, to your question, this is a sort of a study session. So the council doesn't need to motion and vote on these strategies. We're just taking comments and sort of head nods about support for them as we roll forward in bringing specific budget numbers to you.
I would just ask the mayor is if we are going to actually start saying yes to this, no to this, or discuss things, is there any public comments before we actually start deliberating?
well, yes, but so nobody has any comments before nobody on council has any comments before we start deliberating. Is that correct? Looks like Sue Becker has her hand up.
Yeah, I did just want to speak to the proposal for the stimulus, the $50,000 stimulus funds in the form of a contribution to the San Mateo County Strong, and the statement that City Manager Woodhouse made about how those dollars would be focused on Pacifica, even though the name of the fund is San Mateo County Strong and it is a countywide thing. As other cities have also made contributions to that fund, they're earmarking those dollars. And in as much as our sales tax revenue and our, restaurants and small businesses really are an income generator for us, doing whatever we can to help them make it through this time, I think is really important. So we are in a position, as City Manager Woodhouse mentioned, we don't receive stimulus funds directly from the federal government that we might be able to allocate to something like this. We don't receive block grant funds that other cities have been able to turn around and give over to that SAMCETA fund. So I just really feel like it's an important thing for us to consider, and I would ask that that you do bring that back to us in a future council meeting.
Okay. Is there any public comments, Clerk Coffee?
I see no public comments on this item.
Okay. Then I will bring it back to council to have a discussion and or receive the presentation. Mike, you're up.
I don't want to monopolize this. Anybody okay? Because item number 1, utilization of general fund committed or undesignated reserves. I really agree with Lorenzo's. I think, back in 2008, when we looked at like the property tax revenues, Kevin, I sent those to you and it was like 3 years. This year was okay, but like 2 or 3 years down the road, we were still recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I really do think that looking at basically our savings account, that maybe we give direction. That's what I would propose. That we give direction of no more than a percentage will be used in any more than 1 year. So for instance, if we choose 5%, whatever the balance is, I'm not on that page again, but whatever the balance is, we say 10%, let's see, it's 2 million fund balance commitment is.
So your fund balance committed is 2.7 million. Your undesignated is 6.
And both of those are available for us to allocate to help balance this year's budget. Am I correct?
And next year.
And next year. So that I would propose that, let's see, that's, okay, now you're asking me to do math and I forgot my cell phone, so whatever. So, okay.
Councilmember Beckmeyer probably has
Yeah, she probably has it, but I would suggest that maybe we do no more than like a percentage, 10%, 15%, something like that.
Right.
So that down the road, maybe we have to make hard decisions, but down the road, we're not sitting there with a totally empty bucket of money.
Right. Well, that's why I mentioned earlier the strategies that City Manager Woodhouse is putting before you are strategies that we're trying to implement that have as little impact on those reserves as possible.
Yes.
Because we may need them in the future. So we're gonna do what we can every year to balance this budget without touching those reserves too much.
Now, I do agree putting the reserves for compensated absences, and there always seems to be some sort of extra legal costs. So I fully support funding those up because especially both of those could be budget busters,
Mm-hmm.
But in the designated for childcare, I would just want to know because that is potentially something that, given the waiting lists, et cetera, and the service demands, we might actually be needing to expand. So I would be a little more hesitant to expend that because until we see what capital improvements we might need in the next several years. Okay, so I would like to see some sort of cap program for that before we actually I'm just speaking for myself.
I
Obviously,
understand.
you
So,
know,
so let me just talk to you a little bit about the child care reserve. That reserve continues to grow every year. And so from my standpoint, I'm not really worried about it um, having issues in the future. And those dollars have been growing at least for the 5 years that I've been with you. And they are there for a rainy day and in the child care program. And if there isn't, and I think we're definitely there right now.
right.
Now, as far as expansion is concerned, now Director Perez does a good job of making sure that if there's expansion to be had, that expansion pays for itself or generates a small overage.
Right.
So he's very good at making sure that it is not an additional cost to the city. And so I can pretty much guarantee you going forward, he's going to continue that policy. So if you're worried about having to use these dollars to support a future expansion, now I think that expansion is going to take care of itself.
But when he does his plans for the expansion, he's looking at a ongoing expenses. Is he looking at if we actually need to rent a portable, buy a portable, let's say, most of them are near school sites. And I know, having been on the school board, the city usually supplies their own portables for those. So if we're on a school site, then we might have to buy the portable out of that money.
And that's okay. And that's a one-time cost.
Right.
And that's fine. We can use the money for that. And
right. But that's not factored in his ongoing operating costs, correct?
So this reserve, we primarily tag it for one-time use only, such as the cost that you saw this year. Mm-hmm. The $290,000 that we spent improving childcare facilities, it's a one-time cost. That's not an ongoing cost. So if he has expansions in the future that require a portable or some capital item, then he will work with Deputy Director Bautista and they'll come up with the best option for a one-time expenditure.
Okay, so then I'm kind of, again, my opinion, I'm feeling uncomfortable then spending a lot of that money given we have waiting lists.
Right.
And more people will probably be qualifying for subsidized daycare as the economy goes down. So we might actually have more of a growth explosion. And everybody knows there's a lot more kids in town. 4 or 5 years, the school district will be rising enrollment. So,
and Councilman, I agree. However, the child care program is shut down right now.
Right.
And we are still incurring the expenses related to that program. And so if there is a sum of money that's eligible to support those expenses for this particular year, that would be this program. That would be this reserve.
Okay, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm more concerned about, do we need to buy another portable or have a large capital expense? But given the circumstances this year and how unusual it is, I would be okay using that money for, this year and maybe even part of the summer, because we're kind of, figuring that.
Right.
Yeah, if I could add in here, just want to be transparent. We don't know the trajectory of the coronavirus, and if there's a recurrence of it, if we reopen and childcare reopens and schools reopen, and then sometime next year there's a recurrence, we could be in the same situation we're in now, where childcare programs are closed. We're not getting that revenue, but we do have expenditures. Just to throw that out there is that, that's a bad scenario, but it's one that we can keep in the back of our mind as well.
Well, I know the school districts have been told to anticipate possibility of closing again late this year, fall or winter, and have the remote learning. So just because flu season. So, okay. Well, those are my comments right now. Might have some more later. So I want to give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, and to Councilmember O'Neill's comments about a percentage of reserves, when we come back to the council with specific dollars, we could have a couple different scenarios showing, here's what a 5% of the, the fund balance commitment would look like. Here's what a 8%, here's what a 10%. Same for the undesignated. So we could have different scenarios that are based on sort of a percentage threshold if that was the council's desire.
Okay. When you come back, could you have some sort of layout, like you were saying, the commitment one, the designated, sorry, the fund balance commitment and fund balance undesignated are both available for us to decide how we want to spend and use. If that could also be on the report in such a way that the general public can read that also. Do you follow what I mean? It's,
Sure.
I can see where, as an accountant, you like it this way, okay? But the general public would look at that and go, what do these two mean?
There's actually a page in our CAFR that explains our comprehensive annual financial report that actually explains all the different designations that we use for our reserves.
And I bet I could count on my two hands how many people have read that, okay? And 5 of them would have been the council members. The other 5, I don't know who they are.
Well, I'll be sure a copy of that that section of the CAFR is in the staff report.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It's fascinating reading, fascinating.
Yes, yes.
All right. Anyone have anything else? Proposed action is to receive this presentation. Mike, did you have something else?
Yeah, I was going to say to defer the vehicle replacement funding. Now, how much? I know this year we bought a fire truck and that was like 700 something thousand, if I remember correctly, right? And we also bought that big vacuum thing for the sewer, correct?
Yes.
But that came out of sewer fund, right?
Yes.
Enterprise funds. That wasn't general fund.
Yeah. That was a combination of the dollars they had saved in the vehicle replacement fund and additional dollars from the wastewater treatment fund.
Okay. Okay. Are you aware when you come back to us if there's any big ticket ones like that coming back? Then you know what I mean? Because
we'll be happy to do that. But as far as I know, there are no big ticket items out there. There may be a truck in, but as far as the general fund, I think public safety's fine. I know Public Works needs some small equipment, but we'll be happy to give you a list of the things that are possibly on that list.
Well, not that detail. It's just we got behind the 8 ball on that, and it really, there is a public image too of,
right,
rusty bolts running down the street really doesn't look very good at all.
Right. Well, I think we've done a good job of replacing most of the fleet. Again, as you mentioned, we have a new engine for fire, and we have a new back-on down at so those are some pretty major machines and pretty major purchases.
And a new bucket truck for Public Works.
Right. I knew there was like 3 big ones. Yeah.
Yes.
Now the hiring freeze and reclassification, I mean, that's always an easy thing to sit there and say hiring freeze, but I think we really need to know the staffing analysis in regard and comparisons with cities of like size. And I think there is an aspect of, given our issues of winter storms, et cetera, that our Public Works, it's almost a public safety job in Pacifica.
Right.
And I think that's going to be a tough one. Reclassifications would require negotiations with the unions, correct?
Right.
Okay. So that's something that we would be looking at when we reopen negotiations.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we need to. But for right now, this hiring freeze it's a hard freeze. But if the departments feel that that a position has to be exempted from it, then they're welcome to have that conversation with me and Kevin, or me and Manager Woodhouse.
Okay.
And if they feel it's the case, I had a department the other day where they had one person that was in the pipeline and in background. And so since that position had already gone as far as it had gone, that's exempt. But there's another position that organization had where they had just started the process.
Right.
And they've already got enough folks doing this job. And so they can make do. So it's a hard freeze, but there's conversation if we need to have conversation.
Right, because I see that's a part that I don't think the council can really dictate is micromanage, you know, how many people are on a shift in a firehouse and, you know, how many guys ride in public works. I mean, I think you have to trust your management at some point to do that. But I mean, a hiring freeze is always an easy thing to, you know, say. So, okay. And the rest of the stuff I pretty much am okay with.
Okay.
I don't have any further comment. Sue? No? Okay.
Great. Yeah, a lot of good comments and discussion, and I think we have clear direction for putting together what we bring back on May 11th, and we'll be getting through and balancing a budget in this sort of uncertain time, and move forward.
All right, then. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye.
And if the council wouldn't mind, I'd like to adjourn this evening in honor and thanks for all of our essential workers out there fighting on the front line. So thank you to everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.